¡Viva el presidente Chávez! ¡Viva el presidente Maduro! ¡Y otra vez! Sí, cola. ¡Que viva la patria! ¡Viva Chávez! ¡Viva Nicolás! ¡Viva nuestra fuerza hermana ciudad bolivariana! Saludos a la Unión Cívico Militar, Policial, Cultural, presentes en esta defensa de la patria. Este es el mensaje que estamos mandando al mundo. Ahora que acaban de decretar que somos que apoyamos el terrorismo y toda esa cuestión, en esa escalada que tienen de agresión, los gringos, y que pueden venir a decir lo que les da la gana. Aquí le decimos que ellos no pasarán y no volverán. Gracias, año vinimos tanto por este abrebocas, solo fue un ensayo. Que llegan dentro de un ratito con lo mejor de este repertorio que durante 25 años nos han estado acompañando en cada batalla, en cada lucha, por supuesto, a celebrar cada victoria. Somos fuertes vencedores, somos invencibles en esta unión cívico-militar policial. Entonces,
vamos a hacer una presentación también con el compañero Rácelo.
Perfecto.
Sí, llegó Pinky también para esta unión. Ok.
Invadir nuestra nación, para que equivocarse, con el vencedor, por el vencedor. En el deber que pudo de Bolívar y el favor, patria, patria, como no se sabe, ese signo tricolor. Oído, no se equivoque, acá el pueblo mágico la presente, siempre a la orden, a defender la patria, un paso al frente. No se equivoque, acá el pueblo mágico la presente. Ahora no se equivoque, el pueblo no iba a presente, siempre a la orden, para defender la patria vamos para el frente. No se equivoque, el pueblo no iba a presente, siempre a la orden, para defender la patria vamos para el frente. Jugó a reflexionar, gente de menos imperialistas, lealtad comandante, estamos con valor en la milicia. Una fuerza armada nacional bolivariana, la libertad de nuestra tierra soberana. No se equivoque, hay un pueblo conmigo la presente, siempre a la orden, para defender la patria la rumba al frente. No se equivoque, hay un pueblo conmigo la presente, siempre a la orden, para defender la patria la rumba al frente. Lo que se meta con Venezuela se seca, lo que hable mal de Chávez se seca, lo que incitan a la guerra se seca, aquí lugar de traicionar. Lo que se meta con Venezuela se seca, lo que hable mal de Chávez se seca, lo que incitan a la guerra se seca, nunca ha podido Nicolás, no se equivoque, hay pueblo con Nicolás presente, siempre a la orden, para defender la patria la rumba al frente. No se equivoque, el pueblo con Nicolás presente, siempre a la orden, para defender la patria vamos para el frente. No se equivoque, el sol de Venezuela, no se equivoque, no se equivoque, desde siempre, traidores nunca. No se equivoque, donde el pueblo puede, la patria se ejerce, siempre a la orden, para defender la patria vamos para el frente, un paso al frente, un paso al frente, para defender la patria un paso al frente, un paso al frente, un paso al frente, para defender la patria un paso al frente, un paso al frente, un paso al frente, para defender la patria un paso al frente, un paso al frente, un paso al frente, para defender la patria un paso al frente. No se Chávez Fría. Somos la gente de Hugo. Eso me fue fuerza, que se escuche en el cielo. Somos la gente de Hugo. Nuestro comandante, nuestro gran recuerdo fue en el 13 Carreños, donde el presidente Chávez nos entregó una oportunidad en la espada de Bolívar. Hoy esa espada está en nuestro corazón y la desenvainamos cada vez que sea necesario, porque para defender la patria al pie del cañón estamos todos sus hijos hoy y siempre, camaradas. Así que esto, aparte de una marcha, es una gran celebración también junto con nuestros hermanos de allá de Perú, pero por supuesto con toda esa población a nivel nacional, que somos vencedores indestructibles gracias a ese amor que depositó Hugo Rafael Chávez Fría.
They had a whole party over there today. They had a whole party over there. They do not want them to be invaded.
Venezuela. ¡Que viva Venezuela! Vamos entonces con la música y esperamos una canción de Pinky. Ok, me dice que Pinky va a hacer una prueba bien buena. Vamos a ver con qué tema. Pinky va a hacer su prueba y a ver por ahí el club de Abuelo del Sucre del 23 de enero. ¿Cómo estamos con ellas? La queremos, la amamos, aprendemos no solamente sus consejos, sino el gran ejemplo que ustedes nos dan en cada una de esas hoy. Son las primeras que ven a las 5 de la mañana ya, nos pueden jalar la oreja con toda confianza. Véngase ahí con Andrés, abrazo un muchacho eso, lo participa por el año escolar y comenzamos a brincar con el tema de Pinky que viene a este escenario. Tenemos preparado especialmente para celebrar los 200 años de la entrega de la espada en Perú y por supuesto no perdemos la oportunidad para decirle al mundo entero de Venezuela quien defienda y que hoy y siempre la democracia, la independencia, la libertad y por supuesto ese gran amor que rebosa, esa paz que rebosa en cada sector, en cada rincón del país, pero será con nuestra valentía y con nuestra fuerza para defender la patria. ¡Que viva la patria! ¡Que viva!
Bueno, y esa alegría que está de la gente, un gran aplauso. Y sobre todo para este gran pueblo soberano, para todos los jóvenes y las jovencitas. Ayer y hoy está de aniversario el Cuerpo de Policía Científica. Así que ese gran aplauso también para ellos. Hoy es el día del psiquiatra, ese gran aplauso para el psiquiatra venezolano. Justamente hoy, en esta unión perfecta cívica militar, donde nos encontramos hoy demostrándole al mundo entero, a este gran mundo, que estamos demostrando que con amor y muchísimo amor se paga. La paz es grande, la paz es hermosa y Venezuela eternamente ha demostrado que es territorio y sigue siendo territorio de paz. Venezolanos somos únicos en el universo. ¡Esa única venezolana! Claro que sí. Le saludamos a todas las instituciones que hoy nos están acompañando, sobre todo a mi casa madre, la alcaldía del municipio Sucre presente, la alcaldía de Caracas, la UNED presente, la Policía Nacional Bolivariana, las policías municipales, protección civil y toda la parte cívica que hoy nos acompaña acá, el círculo de los abuelos de la casa del 23 de enero, de la parroquia Sucre presente también por acá. Por aquí dice, bueno, pases tan rápido, cariño. El movimiento de la paz y la vida presente. Venezuela paz, Venezuela vida. Y todos acá próximamente, en breve momento, ya vamos a estar saliendo a esta gran movilización para seguir demostrando. Recuerden que vamos a salir todo por el lado izquierdo, todo por la izquierda, para que puedan ir derechito a esta bella hermosa concentración. Y sigue llegando gente, y sigue llegando pueblo. ¿Dónde están las UH? ¿Dónde están los consejos comunales? ¡Comuna! ¡Comuna!
Así que tenemos entonces esperando a nuestro querido Pinky, que viene a hacer una prueba de sonido. Y los estamos tomando gusto. Y ahora bienvenida a nuestra artista Carmen Teresa Meléndez, que hace la presencia acá hoy y siempre, en cada movilización, en cada marcha, en cada rincón de la Caracas, que esta vez más bella y Caracas, la que nuestro nombre dice que siempre vencerá. Dividamos y venceremos en honor a Caracas. Dividamos y venceremos. Dividamos y venceremos. Ya llega Pinky. Mientras tanto, una musiquita de fondo. Ahora es. Esa es la que pensaba que iba a poner. ¡Vamos arriba! Vamos a ver quién grita más. Los abuelos o la gente de los maestros. Vamos a ver, vamos a ver. Ok, la gente está en fondo. La alcaldesa de Venezuela pide que por favor vengan por nada. Las instrucciones son acercarnos a la apertura de salida. La señora cívica que está
Puso musiquita, DJ. Vamos a ver qué trae María Vinigua por acá, que creo que viene factor en breves minutos. Somos alegría, compañeros. Saludamos al movimiento Somos Venezuela, que dice presente. A nuestros hermanos y hermanas de la UNE que están presentes. Por ahí veo a la gente de la Candelaria que está sonando, está de moda. La gente de la Candelaria, vamos a ponernos aquí con la gente de la UNE, aquí adelante. Vamos a incorporarnos ahí. Es la fusión de todo el pueblo. De nuestros hermanos de la Fuerza Armada Nacional Bolivariana, quien pedimos un aplauso para ellos, la Fuerza Armada Nacional Bolivariana. Aquí tenemos a nuestra almiranta Carmen Meléndez, un aplauso para ella, alcaldesa de Caracas, presente, una mujer leal, consecuente. Pero también queremos saludar a todas las fuerzas policiales que están presentes y a nuestros discentes que se están preparando de la UNE. Un aplauso para ustedes también. Un fuerte aplauso. Y queremos saludar a nuestro poder popular que este pasado domingo salió a votar masivamente con el cumpleaños de nuestro presidente Nicolás Maduro. Un aplauso para el poder popular organizado de toda Venezuela. Hoy, compañeros, un día importante, un día de movilización, de conciencia. Seguimos saludando a los compañeros del Partido Comunista de Venezuela, a nuestras hermanas del 23 de enero, al Movimiento de Trabajadores de la Procuraduría General de la República que está presente, el Movimiento por la Paz y la Vida. Y si me siguen pasando papelitos, yo los voy nombrando a todos. ¿Quiénes estamos acá? Consejo Campesino, vamos a incorporarnos aquí, Consejo Campesino. Ya le vamos a dar una banderita al Consejo Campesino. ¿Quiénes levantaron la mano por aquí? El SAIM, el Movimiento de Trabajadores del SAIM. El SAIM lo vamos a incorporar, vénganse por acá, compatriotas. Todo el Movimiento de Trabajadores del SAIM. Vamos a incorporarnos acá, por favor. Hermanos y hermanas, la fusión. Hoy es una movilización de todo el pueblo en sus distintas expresiones. DJ, ponnos algo de música, DJ María. María nos autoriza, DJ. Suelta una pista ahí rapidito, que viene Pink. ¿Qué otras organizaciones están presentes? Vamos a ver, está el Partido Comunista, el Consejo Campesino, el Movimiento de Trabajadores de CanTV dice presente. La gente de Barlovento, mi gente de Tacarigua, de por allí. El Movimiento de Trabajadores de Ciencia y Tecnología presente también. Por ahí está la Misión Robinson, Territorio Libre de Analfabetismo, presente. Saludamos, hermanos y hermanas, a los militantes del Movimiento Somos Venezuela, el Partido Socialista Unido de Venezuela. Servicio de bienes recuperados, servicio de la patria. Luis Montanita y su equipo, dice por ahí. Bueno, un aplauso para ti, compadre. Bueno, hermanos y hermanas, Movimiento Afrodescendiente, claro, hermano, cómo no. Bienvenidos, saludos. Vamos a incorporarnos por aquí, compatriotas. Movimiento Afrodescendiente aquí con el Consejo Campesino. Los compañeros de la UNE, vamos a alinearnos y cubrirnos con el pueblo. Un compañero de la UNE, un compañero de otra organización popular. Debemos mostrar la diversidad de nuestro pueblo. El resto de compañeros de la UNE que están por allá, vamos a avanzar. Allá, los que tienen la bandera tricolor. Vamos avanzando un poquito. Sí.
Ajá.
Allí, buscando cerca.
Mire, no hay una venezolana para que escuchemos a la pirata canta. Canta muy bien, ¿ah? Sí, ¿verdad? ¿Quiere? Ay, ay. Linda Marina, por lo menos, la tengo.
Yo traigo un grito llanero que me salió del te quiero para cantarte Marina. Ajá, para Almiranta, un aplauso para Almiranta, ¿vale? Alcaldesa de Caracas. Un mensaje para nuestro pueblo, mi Almiranta.
El que manda a cantar, ¿verdad? Tiene buena voz. Así que cante él que tiene buena voz. ¿Ah?
Hago coro, mi Almiranta, yo hago coro con Phillips. Yo le hago el coro aquí.
¡Levantar la bandera! Vamos a escuchar música venezolana. Tenemos música venezolana. ¿Cuál quieren? Salsa.
Salsa.
¿Qué dicen los campesinos? Llanera. Música venezolana.
Bueno, por ahí viene
Vamos a calentar porque
sí.
Esta marcha del día de hoy es histórica. Es una marcha cívico-militar policial. Aquí estamos todos juntos como hermanos porque unidos para defender nuestra patria. ¿Quién es patriota de los que están presentes que levanten la mano? Todos los que amamos a la patria. Hoy vamos a marchar en un día histórico, celebrando el bicentenario de aquel día allá en Perú que le dieron a nuestro libertador la espada del Perú, que va a estar comandando esta marcha hasta que lleguemos al lugar de destino. De nuestra bandera, nuestro símbolo. Aquí en Venezuela se respeta, somos un pueblo de dignidad y le vamos a mandar un mensaje al mundo en este día glorioso, en este día de patria, en este día de un pueblo con dignidad, un pueblo que resiste y que no se le arrodilla a nadie. Aquí está el pueblo de Venezuela. Pero que sale la música, ¿ves?
Bueno, mi Almiranta, llegó Factor M y mi pana Camerún. Un aplauso para Camerún y Factor M. Debo decirle, un compañero que ha entregado su vida, su juventud a la música, a la cultura y a la defensa de la revolución bolivariana. Con ustedes, hermano y hermana DJ, suéltale una ahí.
Ok.
Factor M.
¿Dónde está mi gente revolucionaria? Oye, yo quiero saber, ¿dónde están los revolucionarios? Solamente los revolucionarios suban la manita en el cielo. ¿Dónde están los que quieren pasar una Navidad de paz con la mano arriba, 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 arriba? ¡Una bulla chavita!
Todo lo que se sienta orgulloso de ser venezolano. Vamos a hacer una bulla de 5 segundos, ¿sí? A la cuenta de 3. 1, 2 y 3. ¡Bulla, bulla, bulla!
2, 3, 4, 5. ¡Que somos
desde el amor estamos trabajando. Vamos a resolver.
Yeah, this is what I really wanted to play. I was just playing a part of that. Let's listen to her interview, some of her interview.
You think he committed suicide?
Of course not.
So you think that was...
Of course not. Why would he? He probably would have gotten off.
Hey roommates, it's your girl Tembi, and today I'm joined by Lisa Phillips, who is a former model who survived Jeffrey Epstein's global trafficking network. Today, she's stepping into the shade room to tell us a little bit more about her story from victim to voice and silence to leadership. Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm super excited.
Yes, I'm happy to have you here. All right, so give me a little bit about your background as a supermodel, the year 2000s. You're doing your thing, you're killing it, you're, ambitious, and you link up with one of your friends.
So like you said, I was a model in New York and I was living my dream. It's what I had always wanted to do since I was like 13 or 14 years old. The 90s was that time when everyone wanted to be a model. And I just pursued that dream pretty hard after high school. I graduated high school in Belgium, actually.
Oh, wow.
My father was in the service. He worked at NATO, and I left Belgium and went straight to Miami Beach. It was like the heyday, late 90s. And started working my way up in the business. And I worked in South Africa for a while, and I worked in Greece and LA. And then I was like ready for New York. Moved to New York at the tail end of 1999. And then in early 2000, I had booked a really special job. It was the cover of a magazine and a spread with another model from my agency. And I was really excited about it. And we flew to Tortola in the British West Indies.
Fancy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just was a great time in my life. And, the other young model was just like, I have a friend who owns an island close by. We have a day off tomorrow. And, let's go hang out. And so we had talked to the crew and they said it was okay. Ironically, it's kind of weird. They let us go, but we were able to leave for the day. So
tell me what the island was like itself and what the process even was to get you guys there.
Okay, so there was a boat that was sent for us. So we took the boat across from Tortola to Little St. John's.
Okay.
And so normal day on the island. It was very beautiful. We played in the water a little bit in the ocean. There was like a trampoline in the ocean. And then, it was really cool. And then I went to the pool area and there was like an older man there with some younger girls. I noticed they were all blonde. And the girl who brought me also was blonde. And we just, hung out and had a good time. Then we went to dinner and we all sat at a table and we had some really delicious food and enjoyed the evening. And that was the moment where I met Jeffrey Epstein.
So at this point, nothing seemed suspicious. It was just like, we're girls living our best lives. How cool. So at what point did that setting change for you?
Well, I mean, with older men and younger girls, this is something you see a lot in the modeling industry. It was prevalent back then. So, I mean, it's always like, it's kind of odd, but I didn't think anything of it. I certainly didn't think I was in any danger or anything. I was just enjoying the time away from, work. And so everything was fine the entire day up until the evening time. And then I went into like the quarters area where we were going to stay that night because they couldn't send us back to the other island until the morning.
Okay.
And so I was just hanging out with the other girl, just like on the bed and just talking and stuff. And that's when someone knocked on the door and it was one of the other young girls from the
pool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And from dinner. And she just said, Jeffrey's ready for your massage. And so at that point, that was the first I had heard of a massage. I didn't know anything about this man that I met, except for that he was very charming and very nice. And he paid a lot of attention to me at dinner and asked me a lot of questions. And
what kind of questions did he ask you?
Well, he was really good at getting kind of into my psyche, like where are you from and what's your family life like and what's your relationship with your father, your siblings, and what are your dreams and aspirations, and all these questions that most men don't ask you. So most men talk about themselves most of the time, but this one was like honed in on like, who are you? And I want to know more about you, and you're so interesting. And
so you're feeling special.
Yeah, it was super special to have this older, interesting, definitely smart man, interested. But it was more like a mentor kind of thing.
Okay.
It wasn't like a playboy or you know, those type of vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And as a child, I had grown up in Oxford, England,
Right.
and he found that really interesting.
Okay.
And then, you know, I just felt really comfortable with him. I didn't really think that much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're in the bedroom, and I was told that I have to do this massage.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to the other girl, like, what's going on? And she was like, oh, well, you know, Jeffrey kind of likes these massages. You just have to do it. And I just, you know, I went back and forth with her a little bit on that, but I ended up, you know, just agreeing and just going with her. And I left that room and walked over to his room.
Okay.
And we opened the door, we walked in, and he was naked on a massage table and, you know, face down. And
what did you think at that moment when you walk into this room and you see him naked on the massage table? Like, what goes through your mind?
it was just like,
Yeah.
like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know, it was just, everything was really odd, but I didn't feel in any danger. I just thought, okay, maybe I have to do this creepy massage. Like, it hadn't shifted yet.
Okay.
So it was an actual massage.
Okay.
And, you know, with real massage techniques. So it did start off as a massage.
Okay.
And then things shifted. And he went a little dark with the way that he was speaking to me and her, and asked weird questions, you know, like, do you have a boyfriend? And, you know,
While you're
are you
doing the massage?
Yes, like weird stuff, you know. And I was at my early 20s. I wasn't a teenager, you know, but I was in my early 20s, you know, off the plane from Belgium. Like, I wasn't really aware of these types of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, long story short, he abused me and the other girl that evening. And, you know, I just kind of ran out of there with her and went back to that room and kind of just looked at the ceiling all night and was just like, what the f- is going on?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening? And she didn't really have that many answers for me. I feel like.
Had she been there before, like through this?
Well,
before
I didn't know
that
at the
you
time.
of?
She was maybe 22, like she was young too. And I mean, as we know now who Jeffrey is, this is kind of what he did.
Right.
But back then I just didn't really understand what was going on. I never blamed her. I just thought that I blamed myself and like, I'm in this situation. Like, why did I come here? And why did I agree to that? I just was scared.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I didn't really have anyone to protect me. And
so
it was just odd. It was an odd situation.
When you say like abused, like, do you feel comfortable? Like what was that exactly? Was it more mental? Was it physical? Was it sexual?
Rules, physical and sexual.
Okay.
Abuse. Jeffrey had a way of abusing girls. It was a massage that turned into abuse, and he liked to use objects and things. A lot of people aren't aware that these serial predators obviously aren't having sex with hundreds of girls,
right?
You know, and they have to protect themselves as well. So it's not always penetrative things. So it's other things that they'll do. And are you aware of Larry Nassar, the medical doctor for the gymnast?
Right. The gymnast,
right.
Yeah.
Very eerily, because I have a podcast as well, I was interviewing others. Like, it's a very similar type of abuse with objects and fingers, and I think it's called digital rape.
Okay.
That's the way he abused most of his victims.
Oh my goodness.
Both cases, both these men were very similar in that way. So when it comes to serial predators, it's a control thing, and they get off on that whole thing of seeing the fear in your eyes.
Yeah.
So to explain that, it's not always just what you think of a rape.
So there was someone who testified in his case that, you know, Ghislaine taught them how to do the massage.
Yeah.
Did you encounter her at any point?
She wasn't on the island. I met her later on. But they were actual massages. I mean, he really did like to have massages. And there were real masseuses there. As we know, turned into sex slaves for the rich and powerful. So to answer your question, yes, they were actual massages.
That just went dark at some point. So you go back to the room, you're with your friend, and what happens from there?
Well, I just stayed up all night. I was scared. You know, I was trapped on an island. I didn't know how to get off the island. I didn't know what I remember, this is 20 years later.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I was just scared. And I just waited until the boat arrived in the morning, and we ran quickly and got on the boat and we left.
So you didn't even see them at all after that?
Never saw him again on that island.
Did you see your friend ever again?
Oh, she went with me.
Okay.
Yeah. Back to the photo shoot.
Okay.
Finished up the photo shoot for a couple more days.
Uh-huh.
Went back to New York. And yeah, she was a model that was with my model agency at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I did see her, but I never really got any answers from her back then. And most of the young models or actresses and young women during that time didn't talk about it really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe there was some like, you know, like, does he do these creepy massages?
Right.
But we never really went further than that because, you know, I think victims, they blame themselves, first of all. And there's a lot of shame.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very different time where
Yeah.
we don't speak about those things then.
So at what point did you feel comfortable to start talking about your experience?
Well, this happened in 2000.
Right.
And never felt comfortable during those years. You know, I got married, had kids, moved on. And it wasn't until Jeffrey died in 2019. So this is 19 years later.
Wow.
When I even started thinking about what happened to me back then.
Had you like blocked it off?
Well, you kind of do. You suppress it. You don't think about it. But Jeffrey got in trouble 2004, 2005. There was a Vanity Fair article.
Right.
There was, you know.
The kids in Florida.
Yeah, in 2008. So I started thinking, like, starting to understand what kind of monster he was and understand the whole situation of what was really going on, but not an understanding like I do today. And it's probably not even all of it.
So you've talked about how after you left the island at some point, like he reeled you back in. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So after I got back to New York, I continued working as a model. I did feel a little bit more damaged. A little more. I felt damaged after that. So I stopped dating and I started hanging out more on the social scene, and I started partying a little more and not really feeling that great about myself. I'm very confused, but I couldn't talk to anyone about it. And then you have to understand with Jeffrey Epstein, this is an operation going on. So he has secretaries that are working for him, and they would call me profusely. They would call me all the time. Jeffrey thought you were amazing. Jeffrey thought you were really powerful. Jeffrey wants to help you out. All these things to try to reel me back in. I found out later why he wanted to reel me back in is because I'd seen important people on the island.
Okay.
But at that time, I didn't understand why he was calling me. They were calling me all the time.
Had you shared your contact information, or is this something they obtained on their own?
Well, that's a good question. No one's ever asked me that, how he got my contact information.
So it was just out of nowhere, you were just getting these phone calls?
I'm not quite sure exactly how he got my contact information to begin with. That's not easy to find, though.
Right. Especially not at that time either. Without social media, you know, things of the sort, like to be calling you, getting your phone, you know, your phone number and all this stuff.
I'm sure it was from the other girl.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was about 4 months went by. And then one day, Jeffrey called me. And he said, "Hey, Lisa, it's Jeffrey. I remember what you told me on the island, that your main goal was to become a Ford model." And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "Well, I'm really great friends with Katie Ford. And she owns the Ford modeling agency." I'm like, "I know." And he's like, "Well, you know, I told her about you and she would love to meet with you." And so to my thinking at the time, I was just like, wow, maybe he's not a bad guy. Maybe I'm overreacting. You know, he wants to help me. He probably is the good guy, like the other girl said he was.
He used your ambition to control you in a sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's what I had told him on the island that was my main goal. And he got me in that way because that week I went to go meet with Katie Ford at Ford Models, you know, beautiful office in Soho on Green Street. It was a big dream of mine at the time. It was what I was working towards. And I met with Katie and she signed me up and I became a Ford model.
Wow. So at that time, are you thinking he made my dreams come true, I should stay in contact, or was that he made my dreams come true, thank you, and you move on? Did you continue on like a connection with him at that point?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I mean, naively, I thought, yeah, you did something bad to me.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing something nice for me.
Mm.
Thank you. That was going to be the end of it. You know,
Mhm.
just stupidly
Yeah.
thinking that way. When you get involved with somebody like that, they don't let you out of the circle.
Right.
So, I mean, I know this now. Mind you, I didn't know this then.
Mm-hmm.
I became a Ford model, but now we're finding out that Ford models had a lot to do with Jeffrey Epstein, with the exchange of girls back and
Okay.
forth. Many model agencies did at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I only found that out really recently in the last
Okay.
year. Like, I didn't even put that together until more recently.
Do you know, from what you know, if that was like an active partnership in the sense of exchanging, or really business, just business? Is that clear to you at this time?
Well, I don't know. I mean, these girls are teenagers and early
Mhm.
20s, and this is a man in his 40s. And so I don't think any person would think that it's business.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't own an agency. He didn't really own Victoria's Secret. It was just something, I don't know why, grown women were sending young girls to him, and other men, obviously. But I'm finding out a lot more now.
Okay. So he passed away, and you see that on TV, and how does that impact you at that point?
Well, when he passed away, it was a lot for me, because I didn't really understand my relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really think about, any type of abuse at that time. I just thought about, well, I didn't think about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I did not want to think about anything.
Mm-hmm.
When he died, I just knew there was something. My body was telling me there was something. I was having emotional breakdown. And at that time, there were other women that were speaking out, Virginia Giuffre and other survivors of Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got in contact with them, and I just wanted to start understanding. I started reaching out to many girls that I knew back then at the time. What was going on, what was really happening. It took a while to really understand what was going on, because women now are married, they have kids, they want to protect their, or they don't want to, a lot of them didn't even want to think about what happened to them. So, I mean, you have many that stay silent that I know, very dear to me, women now that stay silent. And there are ones that want to speak out, and they have maybe supportive partners who are like, yeah, speak out. You need to do this. It's something that happened to you. You need to own it. So I was just coming from that point of view. I didn't really have a supportive family. And the partner during that time, who was sitting next to me when, I saw the news that he had died on the TV, right like that. And he saw, we run into the room, and just for days, I just couldn't understand what was going on. And finally I had said to him, like, I'm really ready to talk to you and tell you what happened to me back then. And it was like really hard for me to, even because it was the first time I was going to say something about it. I'm getting emotional because it was very emotional back then. And he said to me, oh, I don't want to hear about it. And I was just like, well, what? And it was hard for me, because when you're dealing with these type of abuse, and it's hard for you to speak out, but it's also hard for people. I mean, maybe they're dealing with abuse of their own, or, they don't want to support you. So, sorry.
That's okay.
So it was very, very difficult for me to start the process of like figuring what the happened to me back then. Like, why did he abuse me like that on the island, and why did he reel me back in? And there was a young woman who started speaking out.
Can we get some tissue?
And she's the woman who passed away recently. She took her own life.
Virginia.
Her memoir just came out. And if you read that memoir, you will understand why people who go through these types of things have a hard time dealing with their shame, or their just being understood and seen about it. So you suppress it and you don't talk about it.
Did you try so you tried to talk to your partner about this? He shuts you down. At that point, does that empower you to talk about it to someone else? Does it make you feel more shame to where you stayed silent even longer?
The emotion comes from the fact of no support.
Mm.
And we'll get into that, why that later. That's so important to me
Mm-hmm.
with my podcast and with Capitol Hill. But what I was going through, to answer your question, was I just didn't have any support. The partner who I had given up my life for, my job, like to move in, blend our families here in Los Angeles, was basically telling me,
You didn't
deal
care.
with it on your own. I don't care about you. I don't care about you. And I realized that. And so I was seeking people who understood what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And really, those were just the other survivors of Epstein, which there were hundreds of them.
Yeah. Had you talked to anyone else about it up until that point?
Girlfriends that knew him
Girlfriends,
back then.
okay.
But still, these are successful women who
Yeah.
don't really want to go there.
Right.
I was looking for the ones who, a lot of the ones from Florida that were underage during the time,
Mm-hmm.
came from a different background in
Mhm.
Florida. That was the relationship with Ghislaine and him,
Mm-hmm.
with these underage girls that were mostly white and blonde and things. And they were very different from the ambitious young women in New York that were 18 to 24.
I was going to ask how that affects your dating life and even friendships, because on one hand, that was a close friend, or, I don't know if she was close, but it was a friend of yours who took you to the island. And even though you don't blame her for it, it's still an aspect of, this is my friend and who I went to this island with. So how has that impacted you with friendships and even romantic relationships?
That's a good question. I've never really been asked that before.
Mm-hmm.
She was an associate model friend back then. And I was pretty angry of what she had done.
Mm-hmm.
But I came to understand later that's how Jeffrey operated. So the way he operated was he got these young girls into his orbit, and they brought the other friends in. It was a brilliant, masterful scheme that people need to understand. I don't blame her for what she did, because also she was probably very confused that this is a man who got her she was Polish, got her visa to work in the United States, introduced her to her husband, probably helped her out with the agencies. He helps these women out. Mind you, he helped me out. So I also started feeling that maybe he's not a bad person in my mind. It's confusing to me as well. There were friends of mine who met him through me during those years. So, we all don't blame each other. There's many layers of people who've met each other before me and after me. We don't blame each other because we didn't know better. Until now, we know what's going on. But back then, we kind of didn't really understand. And we also only thought it was just me. A lot of times you think it's just you. You don't think he's doing the same thing to others.
Did he or anyone else in his orbit ever try to use you to recruit other women, like actively, outside of just being around your friends and happen to be in the same room, but like actively like bring women to him?
Well, there were actual recruiters that worked for him. And there were women in the office who were the ones who called the girls. I think the younger girls were just bringing their friends or people that they knew, because they would say, "Oh, you got into NYU. Who helped you? So-and-so helped me. Oh, wow, you got an art studio. Who helped you? Oh, he helped me." So people wanted to meet him. That's a very confusing part about Epstein, but that's kind of how he operated, was the friends brought other friends. He would call me up and say, "Oh, bring some friends. I'm having a party." And then I would show up with like 6 girlfriends that were models and go to his house. And we'd all walk into this room and there was like all these old men. And like, okay, this is not really a party. We were just thinking, okay, this is weird.
Were you nervous to take any of your friends to any of those parties, or did you like kind of like disassociate at that time?
Well, that's probably what I did. I did a lot of disassociating back then, but I didn't see like my friends, being brought into a room or had anything done to them at those parties. I didn't really think anything of it. And then I was also a model where the owners of agencies were also taking you to parties and charity events, and there were always these young girls and older men. So it was something I just thought was maybe normal back then. That was a common thing you saw.
I mean, even today, to some degree, you could still see younger women, older men. So I can understand that for sure. So at the time you were reeled back in, right? You said you feel as though it's because you saw some important people on the island.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Who you saw or what you saw? What was that specifically?
Well, remember I told you when I was sitting at dinner that I had told him, so I have a very interesting childhood. You know, I'd spent a lot of time in Europe and, you know, I was very cultured.
Yeah.
And, you know, someone of his sophistication like that.
Yeah.
Actually, his partner, Ghislaine, was from Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
So when I said that, the person that was on the island that day was from England, and he was a prince. So I guess that's a little showboating to be like, oh, you want to meet a prince? And so when I met him, it was very brief, but I also didn't think much of it because I'm more American, even though I lived in Europe, and we don't really care about the prince in the States. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a big deal to me. But after I had went back home, my girlfriend at the time, who had a relationship with him that was very different from mine, had also been abused by the same person that I saw there. And so when you see these kinds of things, you have to stay silent about them, and you can't be off frolicking around talking to people. So they keep you kind of close. So I didn't really understand why I wasn't really able to break away so much or kind of say no to him without even getting upset. I understand it now.
Yeah.
I didn't understand then.
I know, and I don't know if you can say this, but I know Prince Andrew has been attached to Jeffrey. Was that the prince you saw, or can you not confirm that?
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, I've already said it. I've already.
Okay.
He was the reason why I spoke out originally. Was because Virginia spoke out in 2019. She was making allegations about him, and Jeffrey had died. So I felt safe enough to be like, well, she's telling the truth. So I need to start speaking up. I naively was thinking, you know, that I wanted to support Virginia and the other girls. I wasn't quite ready yet to speak about my story. That kind of took a couple of years to get there.
All right. So when people hear the word trafficking, there's a very specific thought for a lot of people that comes to mind. You know, the more stereotypical movie type girls trapped in a house or cage with the macho man outside and, you know, being sold. Like that's what's like, for a lot of people, that's what comes to mind. But you've talked about how in your experience, it included, you know, flying you to different places to meet, you know, whether it's a major director or something of the sort. So can you talk a little bit about how that is trafficking? It's not the traditional way of how people understand what trafficking to be, but can you speak a little bit about why that is trafficking?
Yes. Trafficking, when it comes to Epstein, in my opinion, is why he had this ring. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that back then. I'm only starting to understand it now as I was deposed for cases and I was telling my story because I had to tell it. It's not because I wanted to tell it.
Right.
I never sought to be this person outing anybody or speaking out about my story. It's very difficult, as you can see still. It's very difficult for me to talk about for a number of reasons. But the trafficking thing is a hard thing it's a hard thing to understand. I'll try to explain it the way that I have seen it or that I've been told how it happened to me and other girls were involved in this web.
So obviously at the time you didn't even understand yourself that was trafficking.
Well, I wasn't thinking I was trafficked, not at all. I was thinking,
I'm getting an
here I
opportunity.
am. I go to NYU, I'm taking acting classes, I'm with a top modeling agency and a top acting agency. If someone says, hey, I have an audition for you that you're right for, you'd be like, yes. Wouldn't you go? If it's a big director that you know who it is, nobody would say no. So when he would say to me, you know, I know so-and-so in Los Angeles who's, you know, shooting this big film, they're in pre-production, they're casting, and you're the right type, I would say, okay, I want to go. And so I would fly to Los Angeles, I would do a casting, I would do an audition and fly home. And I would think that you would think that that
Mm-hmm.
was just a normal thing because many people in the business did that. And I didn't find out until 20 years later that the girls that we started speaking out, they were sent to the same person.
Mm.
It wasn't necessarily for me, let's say, because I was a model and actress. Let's say someone's interested in, you're an artist,
Mhm.
you know, and you're a painter. So this is a high profile person who could help you. He would introduce that person to him.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, you're called a couple days later to go meet with them. And so that
Mhm.
person is excited that this person wants to go meet with them.
Mm-hmm.
They go to meet with them, and then there's an assault or something that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're, you know, you're not aware that
Yeah.
you're supposed to go and meet somebody for a particular reason, but the
they
men
are.
are aware
Ah.
that you're being sent.
So he used real opportunities essentially to as part of this trafficking network. So
There you go. You hit it on the nail. So
Mhm.
whatever the girl's interested in,
Mhm.
it was a real opportunity that they were sent for, where they're thinking it's an opportunity.
So how did these powerful figures know that, for lack of a better word, these were Epstein's girls, right? Like, do you know like what exactly how the organization worked to where they're aware, like, you know, this is someone who's coming from Epstein versus this is someone who's just coming in because she's on the schedule for the day via this other legitimate way versus via Epstein? Like,
Well, I mean, I've learned that just because you're a powerful person and,
Mhm.
and a girl from Epstein sent you doesn't mean that person's aware of it. They have people that are handling their appointments and schedules.
mm,
So Jeffrey had women that were handling his appointments and schedules. So they're communicating with each other, but they're very much aware of who's sending you
mm,
because they know if your acting agency is sending you, your modeling
Mhm.
agency is sending you, your manager is sending you,
mhm.
or Jeffrey's sending you. So they're aware of who.
Okay, so they, you know, in your, whether it's your experience or the people you've spoken to, you get to this audition or this meeting or, you know, whatever it may be. What happens then?
Mm-hmm. Well, the auditions don't look any different really from
Okay.
a lot of the auditions I had from my own agents
Mm-hmm.
because you were hit on sometimes
Mhm.
through your legit agency.
Mhm.
But 9 times out of 10, if Jeffrey sent you for an audition or for Tracy casting or things like that, usually you're hit on in a more aggressive way.
Mm.
Usually you're asked to dinner, so you're alone with him. There were things that were happening where I kept thinking, gosh, why do I keep getting hit on or assaulted? You know, and just in my mind for those many years, just thinking that it was like, there were some bad men, to stay away from them.
Mhm.
I didn't realize until later on when I started connecting the dots, when I was sent for a handful, it was only a handful, it wasn't like it was 20.
Mhm.
So a handful of auditions, those men were also being sent maybe 8 or 10 others.
Wow. Were you ever abused by any of these men?
Absolutely.
So it continued at you know,
Well, back then I didn't. A couple times. One time there was an abusive situation.
Mhm. And you've talked about how for most victims, a lot of it wasn't sex, so they don't connect that to being abuse.
Well, I was talking about serial predators
Okay.
who are seeing 6 to 8 girls a day.
Okay.
It all can't be sex.
Mm-hmm.
When you're sent to a director, they usually want sex. Yes. I had a couple bad experiences as a young actress. I have an NDA with one of them, so I can't really say the other situation.
Mhm.
And then finding out later, you know, my model agency had a lot to do with it as well.
Did you ever try sue your modeling? Like, how does that work? Like, how do you hold your modeling agency accountable?
What's it called when they make you come?
Subpoena?
Yeah. So yeah. So a lot of these cases were because I was subpoenaed or deposed
Okay.
for, and I had to be honest and say what happened to me. This was never like on my own saying that I'm going to go after these men. I've never wanted to, or go after the owners of my agencies. I'm ready to move on with my life. That wasn't really my angle.
Right.
It just happened to come out that way.
So we flash forward, right, to modern day. At some point, Jeffrey's arrested. They go through the trial. Ghislaine's sent to jail. Modern day, the government says they won't release the list, the client list for the sanity of the survivors. And you and some other survivors make a powerful stance and go to Capitol Hill and basically say, well, if y'all aren't going to release the list, we're going to release our own list with what we saw and who we know. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Very powerful, by the way.
Thank you. It did feel very powerful. I think in that moment for me, it was just about taking my power back. I felt so helpless for so many years. I felt confused and isolated and really kind of getting angry, standing there listening to these young girls, their experience when they were young girls. And a lot of them were really dark. And we're kind of all aware because there's hundreds of us. We all kind of talk amongst each others and we kind of connect the dots a little bit. And we have a list of names of people that we saw. And I mean, Virginia Giuffre has a long list of names that she was abused. And I don't think it's our main goal as survivors to out these men. I mean, we're not foolish and we understand they're very powerful men and we understand they're probably going to get away with everything. What we were trying to say is that, the DOJ has a responsibility to release people that were involved and that enabled Epstein and this very powerful and dark and disturbing sex trafficking ring. I mean, that is a truth. JP Morgan funded it, admitted to it, settled on it. So we're aware of the facts. And Jeffrey recorded everything. There's flight logs. There's mounds of information out there. And they know. So we get really upset why they're keeping it so much of a dark secret. It's upsetting to us.
What's the current status of you guys' list? Like, is there a reason you haven't published it yet?
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people think that I was going to say, or, other people have stepped up and said they were going to release this list. I mean, I don't know if there was a client list. I mean, there were people who were benefiting and profiting off of Epstein. And the FBI and the government has all the information. It's not my job or these survivors' job to stand up there and read off a list of men. I mean, it's never going to happen. So what I was saying was I was talking to survivors out there that you don't have to be ashamed anymore and you can own your story and you can speak out, you can join us, we can get more powerful together and we can start pushing for things to happen. We do have things in store that we are, trying to create change and make things happen, but we're not the ones that are going to stand there and read off some list. We're just not going to do that. So I think people got very confused about that.
I took it as that, if you're not going to release the list, we're going to release, our own list with what we know.
Politics is theatrics, really. And it's like, you want to us, like we back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, we're going to do this little dance with you because we want to take our power back. We don't want to sit there like little victims. We're grown women now and we do have the power to make changes. Maybe not to hold these particular men accountable, but it angers me that there's only a woman in jail.
There has been talks about, so Ghislaine, she's in jail, but people say it's like a vacation jail and she was sentenced to 20 years for sex trafficking. There has been conversation about potentially pardoning her. Does that trigger you in any way or affects you in any way?
Of course it does. I have kids that age, they're children. So I don't know what it is, what the responsibility that I have. I've always felt that I have. It's just, I want to protect them, or these kids. And just listening to these women now speak about what happened to them. A lot of them were raped. A lot of them, he took their virginity. Like, this is like some serious things that were going on here. This isn't just like a creepy little massage. These kids have these women now, they have major trauma. You know, I can see it. And it really deeply affects them as you see someone like Virginia Giuffre, like taking her own life. Yeah. Like this is stuff this is very important.
Do you believe she took her own life?
Oh, absolutely. Of course she did.
Okay.
It's a cycle of abuse. She was abused as a child by her own father, creating these conspiracy theories that, you know, someone's running around Australia trying to kill people. No, there's something that's very real called the cycle of abuse. And when you've been abused, you feel worthless. And you sometimes have people in your life who don't support you and make you feel more worthless. Anyone who's gone through trauma as a child, as a young person, or any time in their life, you have to realize that you have a feeling about yourself. It's a sense of worthlessness and shame. That's what the abuser puts on you.
Have you ever had thoughts about harming yourself?
Never. No. I mean, never. I just don't come. I'm surprised I don't, you know, but I've always been a very healthy person. I feel like I've also been caught in the cycle of abuse as well, you know, with my husband, and then a few years ago with another boyfriend.
Your husband abused you?
Well, I didn't choose well after this. I didn't choose well. You know, I didn't get the healing and the therapy that I needed. I suppressed it. When we suppress things, it's going to come out in other ways.
In a different way.
You know what I mean? I've had major therapy over the last couple of years. So I was caught in that too. And so I understand Virginia. Remember, Virginia is the reason why I spoke out originally in 2019. And I believe she was the one I saw on the island when I first went there. I want to support her story. And I know that she had the cycle of abuse from childhood with Epstein and Ghislaine, many other powerful men. And unfortunately, she chose a husband who was supposed to protect her, who also, towards the end of her life, she was beat up by him. We all saw the pictures. Yeah. So she was trapped, and she didn't feel like she can get out of it. Yeah. She's a powerful woman like taking on these men. It took a toll on her, but she was powerful. She was like, I need to say something. I need to do something to bring this down, because so many people tried to, and she was the most effective. And she was the reason why I started speaking out. But I sympathize. I mean, I empathize with her, because I have also been through that type of cycle.
So when it comes to even your cycle, I read you talking about how you met someone you thought you were in love with, and they tried to abuse you in the same way Jeffrey did. Can you talk about
you do your research, don't you? That was the reason why I started the podcast.
Okay.
A lot of people think I started this podcast because of what happened to me years ago with Epstein. But it's really because I started speaking out. I was on documentaries, and it took me a little bit of time to speak out. I was really sticking up for the other girls because they were these powerful men that were in headlines. And I was kind of not really ready to talk about mine. It came a little bit later. But to answer your question, I was in a relationship with a man that I was deeply in love with. And that's when I started speaking out in 2019, and he was not supportive. And I just felt so much worthless with this man. Just didn't make me feel beautiful, or I just didn't feel like, I was anything for him. And I wanted a man in my life that was more like a friend and someone I could talk to. And I was on this Lifetime documentary, and a man from Boston, many men actually reached out to me. I don't know how. The topic matter. I don't know why you'd find someone like me attractive, when you're speaking out about this kind of thing. But I got a lot of mail.
Interesting.
But this one man in particular, he was into commercial real estate, and he was successful, and he had a lot of pain from his childhood. I think he had been abused. Well, we just became really great friends, and we had a friendship. It wasn't the love of my life. It wasn't really a attraction. It was more just a great friendship, I thought. So I knew him for about 5 months, and it was during the pandemic, and I moved myself and my boys to Boston for a few months, just to be close and get to know this man. And I'd known him for about 5 or 6 months, and on the night that we were going to be intimate, you know, I never talked about this, but this man wanted to abuse me in the same way that I had been telling him. You know, and it's just like, it broke me because, why am I so emotional? That broke me because I was just like, are you frigging kidding me here? Like, this is man I trust. You're my friend. And he just wanted to do the exact same thing that had happened to me on that island. And I just thought it was sick. Like, you're sick. You're a sadist. And, you know, it was tough. It was just tough because I just felt like, am I fooled again? Am I that stupid?
No.
He wasn't right. And I thought it was kind of messed up that he wanted to do those things with me instead of being loving with me. And he didn't know how to be loving with me. And so that kind of broke me. And that was 3 years ago, and I didn't date. You know, after that, I just fell into this like, why can't I meet a good guy?
Yeah. So you confided in him.
Oh, yeah, for 5 months.
Used that against you.
My best friend for 5 months.
Wow.
You know, and I thought, okay, well, I'm not so attracted to this man, but like maybe we'll be together. And, you know, we were really forming a relationship to be together. It wasn't the type of relationship that, you know, most women want, like, you want more of a passionate thing. But I liked the friendship that I had. And I did have a deep friendship with him. Fortunately, he was religious. He was a good Christian man. Bullshit.
So is those ones.
He was a good Christian man, and all the man had some demons, but that's what he wanted me to do with him. But I wasn't the one to do those things with him. Yeah. I had so much trauma from my early years. I wasn't willing to do those things that he wanted.
Which is what? The things he wanted?
I mean, probably normal things for guys listening, but like sex toys and threesomes and things like that. That's how I've been abused. I wasn't looking for that in a man. I wanted like regular.
So how do you, what's healing like for you? Because you had this situation 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, she had some weird shit going on. Yeah, it affects you even today. That kind of stuff affects you even today, right? And it's like, okay, did you ever get help? Did you ever get therapy? Did you do anything? Or you don't know? We really can't tell because she didn't say anything. We don't.
5 others who are either former.
So this is one of the people who spoke up on that video, who said you didn't have to you didn't have to listen to unlawful orders. Yeah, he was fucked up.
Myself and 5 others who are either former intelligence or former military officers put out a video restating the law that's in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That if you're given an order that's illegal, according to the UCMJ, you have the ability to push back on that order. Legal orders should always be followed. Right? Just talking about illegal orders. We had a ton of folks in uniform and a lot of veterans come to us and raise real concerns about things that they were asked to do or things that they were concerned they might be asked to do, particularly with the deployments of the National Guard and uniformed military into our city streets, places like Chicago, and the strikes in the Caribbean against drug cartels. The legality, particularly on the going after the drug cartels, it's a secret list of groups that we're now in armed conflict with, and it's based on a legal explanation that's classified and not available to the operators who are carrying out these strikes. So they started coming to us and saying like, hey, I'm not sure what to do. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any advice? And that's where the video came from. This is unfortunately not a hypothetical conversation. In 2020, President Trump didn't like the unarmed protesters that were in front of the White House in Lafayette Square. And he suggested to his Secretary of Defense and his chairman of the Joint Chiefs in the Oval Office, you know, can't they just, quote, shoot at the legs of the unarmed protesters? Secretary of Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, I give them a lot of credit. They knew immediately that would meet the definition of an illegal order. And they got out of there as fast as possible so that he didn't demand and try and get them to carry out that order. But here's the thing, regardless of whether you agree with the video or don't agree with the video, the question to me is this the appropriate response for a president of the United States to go after and seek to weaponize the federal government against those he disagrees with? We're not the first group of people that he's done that with. We are not going to be the last group of people to do that. He's tweeted dozens of times about us in the past 72 hours or so, as has the vice president, saying that we should be arrested, we should be tried, we should be convicted, and made clear repeatedly that the sentence for that crime would be hanging. He's repeated that over and over, both in his statements and in memes. Because of that, we saw an immediate and massive uptick in the number of death threats that we got. I mean, we couldn't, hundreds up, it's got to be past thousands now, both in calls to our office, in emails. The Capitol Police and the Sergeant of Arms decided to put myself and others on 24/7 security. They're here today. We had a bomb threat at my family farm where I live. My family has been harassed. It's been an immediate change to our life. And then last night, the Counterterrorism Division at the FBI sent a note to the members of Congress saying they are opening what appears to be an inquiry against the 6 of us. To be honest, the president's reaction and the use of the FBI against us is exactly why we made the video. He believes in using the federal government against his perceived adversaries, and he's not afraid to use the arms of the government against people he disagrees with. He does not believe the law applies to him. He has said that every which way to Sunday, which is exactly why we made the video, to give people some assurance that they weren't alone as they watch this stuff unfold. This is a scare tactic by him. He is
I don't think they should be able to prosecute. He should be able to prosecute anybody. Okay. This old already see you. Yeah.
attempting to use the FBI to scare us out of.
The problem is we have an unlawful president. People just have not accepted the fact that we have an unlawful president and a president who doesn't mind breaking the law. That right there in itself is a problem. And when you got to put PSAs like this out because the president doesn't know how to conduct himself in polite society, that's a goddamn shame.
Continuing to talk and have conferences like this. And I think it is a well-worn tactic of people who are trying to intimidate adversaries, their perceived enemies, out of public criticism of themselves. And again, this is not about any one video or even one sentence out of a video. This is about who we are as Americans, how we're going to engage with each other, whether we're going to use law enforcement and the military to target legally people who say things that is basic freedom of speech and restating existing law. Now, obviously, you hear I have a cold, but regardless of that and the attempts to intimidate us, that is not going to stop me or anyone else who made this video. In fact, I think it's more important than ever, given that he's used the same tactic on the private sector, on law firms, on universities. We are not the first group and we are not the last group that he is going to use the arms of the government. And again, if he's going to use the FBI against members of Congress, what would he do to average citizens who don't have that elected cover? So it's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop others. I feel strongly that we were doing what we believed was right based on our oath of office to the Constitution. And if he wants to use the FBI and Kash Patel against us, that is his choice, but it just reaffirms why we made this video in the first place.
He gonna run into a whole bunch of trouble when he starts to, he gonna run into the right one. He gonna run into the right one. It is what it is.
The Pentagon's investigation into Mark Kelly. What do you make of his response? response that it's just intimidation?
The White House is supportive of the Department of War's investigation into Senator Mark Kelly. And I think what Senator Mark Kelly was actually trying to do was intimidate the 1.3 million active duty service members who are currently serving in our United States Armed Forces with that video that he and his Democrat colleagues put out. Senator Mark Kelly well knows the rules of the military and the respect that one must have for the chain of command, and that all lawful orders are presumed to be legal by our service members. You can't have a functioning military if there is disorder and chaos within the ranks, and that's what these Democrat members were encouraging. It's very clear, and not a single one of them, since they've been pressed by the media, and I'll give you guys credit for that, can point to a single illegal order that this administration has given down, because it does not exist. They knew what they were doing in this video, and Senator Mark Kelly and all of them should be held accountable for that. No, because Lindsey Callaghan was legally appointed, and that's the administration's position. I know there was a judge who is clearly trying to shield Letitia James and James Comey from receiving accountability, and that's why they took this unprecedented action to throw away the indictments against these two individuals. But the Department of Justice—
It couldn't be that the administration is corrupt. It couldn't be that you guys are incompetent. It couldn't be that. Because, see, that's the real truth. The real truth is this administration is incompetent in some areas. And the people keep coming and doing the wrong thing. How does that many people on that many fronts do the wrong thing? Because it is a level of incompetence that comes from the top. That's our problem.
Justice will be appealing very soon, and it is our position that Lindsey Callaghan is extremely qualified for this position, but more importantly, was legally appointed to it. Steve. Yeah. So there are no plans at this moment in time. As you know, things can change very quickly around here, so we'll keep you all apprised, but there's no meeting scheduled right now. As for where we are, I spoke with Secretary Rubio at length. I spoke with the president as well. Everybody inside feels optimistic about what happened and transpired yesterday in Geneva. Secretary Rubio, Special Envoy Witkoff, the whole team really worked through the points of that 28-point peace plan that the United States authored with input from both sides, the Russians and the Ukrainians. And ultimately, the vast majority of these points have been agreed upon. The Ukrainians have worked on language with us together, and you heard that from their delegation directly yesterday. So we feel as though we're in a very good place. Of course, we have to make sure that all of these points are agreed to. And then, of course, we're going to have to make sure the other party in this war, the Russians, agree to them as well. But I think the president deserves a great deal of credit for the amount of energy and effort he's put into trying to bring these two sides to an end of this war. He wants to see this killing stop. As for any deadlines, he wants to see this end as soon as possible.
Is the president more determined to go after Tish James and James Comey?
Go ahead.
Is the president more determined to go after Tish James and James Comey?
Excuse me. I'm answering a question from you.
You looked at me. I'm sorry.
I turned and looked at you because you're yelling. I will take a question from your colleague, and then I'll take your question too. Okay? Go ahead. I don't want to detail sort of the technical talks that are happening right now, but there are just a couple, and we're confident that we'll be able to work through those. The president's been putting a lot of pressure on both leaders for this entire time. We've been talking with both sides. He's been talking to both leaders directly.
She been talking to both leaders directly about the medical thing? No. Boy, this girl knows she know how to spin. When she want to lie, she knows she know how to lie. That president wasn't talking to nobody about that medical until he saw the poll numbers. Saw that his poll numbers was shit.
For 10 months now. So yes, you can expect that pressure to continue. The president wants this war to end.
Caroline, is the president more determined now, since the judge's ruling today, to go after James Comey and Tish James? And if so, why?
I wouldn't say he's going after them. I think the president is more determined than ever to see accountability in this country, yes, and to correct the wrongs of the weaponization of our justice system that we saw under the previous administration and Joe Biden.
Are we entering a new phase of Venezuela, and what does that entail?
Well, as the president is so good at, I'll try to be just as good. I'm not going to broadcast any actions that may or may not be happening with respect to Venezuela. I know I've been very clear about the administration's position, as has the president and his national security team. We view the Maduro regime as being illegitimate, and the president has been very satisfied with the successful strikes against narco-terrorists and foreign terrorists that are illegally trafficking drugs towards the United States of America. He's not going to tolerate that, and you can expect to see those strikes continue.
They can't tell the truth about nothing. Everything is a spin and everything is a lie.
What was President Trump's reaction to those indictments against Comey and James being thrown out?
His reaction was, we've seen this before. We've seen partisan judges take unprecedented steps to try to intervene in accountability before, but we're not going to give up. And I know that the Department of Justice intends to appeal these rulings very soon. If they haven't already, I may have missed it.
Caroline, one question on Venezuela. Is there any plan, meeting for this week on Venezuela? And another one, a clarification on this weekend, because the president was asked about the former Brazilian president being arrested, and he mentioned that he spoke with this gentleman. Did he speak with Bolsonaro the day before?
I knew he wanted to steal Zelensky's medals when he was here the last time, when he went off on him in the White House. Reniel, I knew he wanted to steal his medals then. Of course, he wanted to steal his medal. Zelensky is the reason why Donald Trump got impeached the first time. Zelensky was the reason why Donald Trump got his first impeachment. Y'all know that, right? Donald Trump called up Zelensky on the phone in 2019 and told him, I'm not going to give you your money, your materials, your military weaponry unless you give me dirt on Joe Biden. Zelensky is the reason why Donald Trump got impeached the first time. The phone call between him and Zelensky.
He was arrested.
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if that call took place or not. It may have. I can get you a firm answer on that, Raquel. I know it's of great importance to you for your reporting. As for meetings on Venezuela, there's meetings on a range of topics inside this building all of the time. And the president is constantly apprised of what's going on in the world, what's going on in the news. And he's very well written into all of the things that his team are working on.
Caroline, please, if you would not go into the sticking points of the disagreement between the two parties.
Oh shit, I forgot I got to show y'all something.
But how
holy shit
is the president in coming to a deal, and will the Europeans be part of a final negotiation response?
I think he's been quite flexible already. We've been watching this war go on for 10 months. He's talked to both leaders countless times. Our team has engaged with both the Russians and the Ukrainians extensively. As I said, there is a sense of urgency. The president wants to see this deal come together, and he wants to see this war end.
I wanted to ask you, is it MAGA to support American workers being replaced with H-1B visa holders? Are Americans not capable of filling most of these positions?
Who supports getting American workers getting replaced?
I know the president mentioned that he wanted to bring in some workers that he could eventually send back in regards to...
The president does not support American workers being replaced. You are mischaracterizing what the president said. The president wants to see our American manufacturing industry be revitalized better than ever before. That's part of what he's doing with his effective...
Unfortunately, that would take several years, maybe even a decade, to bring back manufacturing the way she's saying. It's amazing that these people just will lie for no reason, and not, like, somebody can't fact check that. It will take millions and millions, maybe billions of dollars to bring manufacturing back. And who the hell is going to pay for that? Nobody. She's lying, just like President Trump is lying.
Use of tariffs and cutting good trade deals around the world. That's why he's recruited trillions and trillions of dollars in investments into our country. Those are creating good paying American jobs right here at home. As for the H-1B visa issue, the president has a very nuanced and common sense opinion on this issue. He wants to see if foreign companies are investing trillions of dollars in the United States of America, and they're bringing foreign workers with them to create very niche things like batteries. He wants to see that at the beginning to get those manufacturing facilities and those factories up and running. But ultimately, the president always wants to see American workers in those jobs. And he's told these foreign companies that are investing here, you better be hiring my people if you're going to be doing business in the United States. So there's been a lot of misunderstanding of the president's position. Michael.
Caroline, is President Trump asking for Xi Jinping's help and putting pressure on Putin to help end the war tonight?
I won't get into the details of the conversation this morning other than what the president put out on Truth Social. He put out his own readout of that, and I will leave it to that. But I did speak with him about.
And she be expressing herself like the president be doing the smartest shit, and they be doing bullshit. Like they be doing smart shit. This shit is bullshit.
Out the call,
the whole thing is lies and subterfuge.
Lasted about an hour, and it was a very positive call. The focus of the call was really Russia, Ukraine did come up, but the focus was mainly on the trade deal that we are working on with China and those relations and how they are moving in a positive direction. President also addressed our farmers, and we are pleased with what we've seen from the Chinese, and they feel the same way. And the president and President Xi discussed continuing to stay in correspondence following their very productive meeting in South Korea.
Ukraine, does the progress that you just laid out change the Thanksgiving Day deadline for Ukraine to come to an agreement, or does the president still want something more definitive by Thursday? And then on the Comey and James case, does the president still have confidence in Lindsay Elliott?
Absolutely, he does, to your second question. As for your first question, with respect to the deadline, the president wants to see this deal come together as quickly as possible, and he trusts that his team is doing everything they can to get it over the finish line.
Does the president support Israel's elimination of Hezbollah chief of staff Ali Dabda yesterday, and is he in favor of Israel blocking Hezbollah from growing again?
I haven't spoken to the president about that strike specifically, but of course the president supports Israel's right to defend itself and to take out any terrorist threats in the region. Jake? I know there's been a lot of reporting on this from yourself as well, Jake, over the last few days. I will tell you that healthcare is a topic of discussion that's happening very frequently and robustly inside the West Wing right now. The president's very much involved in these talks, and he's very focused on unveiling a healthcare proposal that will fix the system and will bring down.
He ain't had a proposal since the beginning of time. He ain't never had no proposal, and they don't have a proposal. What they have is Obamacare figured out or fixed so they can extend those subsidies. That's all they're trying to do is to extend those subsidies. And that's it, because they understand that there's going to be a blue wave. The thing is, they're hoping that it's a blue wave enough where they don't take the Senate too. Right now, the House is gone as far as they're concerned. It's the Senate that they're trying to save.
Costs for consumers. As for the details of those discussions, I'll let the president speak for himself. As you all know, sometimes you report things and then President Trump comes out with an announcement, and those things are not always true from what you hear from sources inside the building. So I'll let the president speak for himself. Sure, go ahead, Kara.
After they had such a great meeting. Any comment from the White House on that?
I think talk is cheap, and I think that the president is going to judge Mamdani by his actions that he takes to New York. The meeting was positive, as you heard from the president last week, and I think the fact that the president is willing to meet with somebody who said those types of things about him shows that he really is interested in being a president for all Americans, regardless of where they live or who their leader is. He wants what's best for New York. He loves New York City. He helped build the skyline. He spent his whole life there. And so he really wants.
Y'all see the spin. Y'all see the bullshit, right? Y'all see the bullshit. Ever since this president got in office, that's all you heard him say was the left ain't shit. The left ain't shit. The left ain't shit. The left ain't shit. Now the left is some shit. Now you want to be a president for all people. You see how they spin this bullshit. We ain't buying. It's too late. We ain't buying. It's too late. Y'all done fucked up.
Wants to see New York do well. And so that's how that meeting played last week.
Caroline.
John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. There are a few Republican senators who are critical of the 28-point police plan, including Senator Rounds, Senator Graham, Senator McConnell. What do you say to those senators who say that this is giving too much away to Russia? And has Russia made any concessions as it relates to a possible peace deal concerning ending the war in Ukraine?
I would point any critics to the words of the Ukrainians yesterday, in which they said that they feel very positive about this plan. They've been very involved. They have had direct input on the language of this plan, and that we are in direct communication and correspondence with them. Any idea, let me just finish with this, the idea that the United States of America is not engaging with both sides equally in this war to bring it to an end is a complete and total fallacy. And I saw a lot of misinformation and rumors and allegations against people in this building, such as Secretary Rubio and Special Envoy Wynkoff and the president himself, that they are favoring one side over the other. That could not be further from the truth. I have watched as the president and his team have worked around the clock overnight with both sides on endless phone calls, endless meetings to try to bring this war to a close. And any suggestion otherwise is a complete misunderstanding of the facts. It's coming from people who have.
If her lips are moving, she's lying. If any of their lips are moving, they're lying. Specifically, her and the president.
No idea what they're talking about, or people.
You would love to love her, Brandon. Her husband is 60 years old. Maybe you can steal him from her. Steal her from
People who are pushing their own agenda, or maybe people who don't want to see this war come to an end. I don't know. Maybe they're profiting off of it. Maybe they benefit from it in some way, but nobody.
Devin, I know you. I know you may be less than 25, but maybe you need to read the history. Maybe you need to read the history. Okay. Every time this country has flourished and gotten better and been prosperous has been under the Democrats. So I don't know why you in here doing the bullshit that you're doing. Okay. It's just a fact. Go back and read it. Go back and read history. Okay. Just a fact. Don't be no hater. Don't be a hater.
In this building benefits from war. We want to see this war come to an end. And that's what the president and his team are proudly working to do. And I think the critics should just take a step back and think about what happened with Israel and Gaza. There were a lot of doubters, and we got the hostages.
She's 28 or 29, something like that. And her husband is 60.
Out, and this president secured a peace deal that still exists and is ongoing today. So
no, I'm not hilarious, Brandon. If you're old enough, you should know, you should understand what I'm saying. But I'm assuming that you're less than 25, so you wouldn't understand what I'm saying.
Everyone should just respect the work this administration is doing and watch the process unfold. Thank you.
Watch the process unfold. Yeah. Hold on. I got this for y'all. Found this today. Hold on. I was like, oh, hell no. Let me see this. Hold on. What he say?
You're all here voting on this bill because President Trump, who has the power to release the Epstein files at any time, has refused to do so, calling this a hoax. We're here because Speaker Mike Johnson and President Trump have gone to extraordinary lengths to try to kill and delay the discharge petition, including refusing to seat Adelita Grijalva for over 40 days and threatening House Republicans who signed on. Now, several of my Republican colleagues have accused those of us House Democrats who support justice here of having Trump derangement syndrome. We all suffer from something much worse, which is pedophile protection syndrome. Stop protecting pedophiles, release the Epstein files. The victims deserve justice. I yield back. We reserve.
Kicking the teeth. Kicking the teeth. Kicking the teeth. And then we got to listen to the very smart Melissa Cox Richardson, who is a expert of Republicans. So when she speaks, she has studied Republicans all her life since she's been a kid. So she knows with what she speaks. And we introduce Heather Cox Richardson. She studied Republicans all her life. Because she is one.
Hey, folks. Welcome from to the here's somebody from Hudson, Wisconsin, Gum Springs, Virginia, Dublin, Ohio, Ventura, California, Palo Alto. Dear friends, lived in Palo Alto, Peekskill, New York, York, Pennsylvania. Oh, somebody I wanted to call out just went flying by and now I lost it. Fond du Lac. Boy, you know, Columbus, Ohio, there in the downtown area, you've got some beautiful old woodwork on those buildings. Atlanta, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I love that everybody comes in from all, I don't have cable at my house, so I can't do anything. I can't upload anything from the house. So I work at my house, but then somebody lets me use this place and I come over to use it. And every time I go to do these politics chats, I make all my notes over at my house and then I leave the notes behind. I know exactly where they're sitting. But so when I got here and realized I didn't have them, I tried to recreate them. So not all your questions are going to get answered. Sorry about that. I will try to do better in the future. So let me just start by pushing away the easy questions to answer. And I'm going to call up something here. The first is somebody asked about whether it was true that James Garfield, the president who was elected in 1880 and then assassinated in 1881, would have been a progressive president. And the answer to that is 100%. Garfield was very much like Lincoln in the sense that he was a Lincoln Republican. He believed in equal rights for Black Americans, and he really, really hated how corrupt the Republican Party was becoming. So in fact, during his campaign, he campaigned heavily for saying, we're not going to put up with the kinds of laws that are getting passed in the American South that essentially remand Black Americans back into a form of quasi-slavery. And at the same time, I'm not going to put up with the corruption that you're seeing with people like Roscoe Conkling. And Roscoe Conkling is a really interesting guy. He was the Charles Guiteau assassinated him at the train station, which, by the way, there is a wayside there in Washington, D.C. It shows you where the train station used to be. It's actually now in the middle of Constitution Ave. And I know all that because I happen to be on the committee that got the wayside put there. And this shows you how oblivious people like me can be. The train station and where Garfield was assassinated is now in the middle of the road. And when we were talking about where to put the acknowledgement that this had happened, I said, well, why not just mark the center of the road? And, so the people, when they went by, would see a star on the road or whatever, and know that's what happened. And they looked at me like I had three heads and said, do you have any idea how many people are going to get hit by cars gawking at that? And I was like, oh, that's why I work on books and not in it for the National Park Service. So the answer to would Garfield have been a sort of Lincoln president or what somebody said, a progressive president, is yes, 100%. And those of us who know Garfield, there's no dispute about that. Garfield, all right, I'll stop. But Garfield to me is one of the really, really interesting presidents that not enough people know about. And then of course Arthur, who follows him, is also really interesting. And this is going to make you all bonkers, so I will not continue down this road. But any day you get to talk about James Garfield is a good day. So thank you for asking that question. All right. So another one that's going to be easy to get rid of is the question about Article 2, Section 4, which is the piece of the Constitution that establishes how one gets rid of a president. And people really misunderstand this. And I get frustrated because you see it circulating on social media all the time, that if a president is impeached and then convicted by the Senate, that the entire administration goes. And that is simply not true. So the Section 4 of Article 2, so remember the way the Constitution is set out. Article 1 is Congress. Article 2 is the president. Article 3 is the judiciary. So when you talk about Article 2 powers, you're talking about the president. Section 4 of Article 2 says, the president, vice president, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. That means that they can each be impeached, but they don't go as a body if one of them gets impeached. And that's people are misunderstanding the way that happens. So that's another easy one to get rid of. And it's so frustrating because you see it come up on social media all the freaking time. And it has never been interpreted to mean that everybody goes when one person goes. And certainly we've had a number of occasions on which people have been impeached and some have been convicted, people in the cabinet. I think, or else they resigned because they knew it was coming. No, that's not true. Anyway, I'll stop. But the whole shebang doesn't go just the person who has been impeached and then convicted. And to be clear, impeachment is not necessarily about breaking a law. It can be, but it means that they don't trust you any longer. And my example here is that you could be impeached if you got elected and you did nothing but play video games all day. It's not against the law to play video games, but you are not doing your job. And if the House impeaches, they have to write articles of impeachment, and then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate is supposed to sort of rethink itself as a jury to weigh the articles of impeachment and decide to convict or not to convict. And although we have had now 4 impeachments in our history, the Senate has never voted to convict. And that's itself really interesting. But I just bored you to tears with James Garfield, so I'm not going to talk about impeachment votes. Although, you know, when we're on the other side of this someday, I will probably just do history videos and history lectures, and you know, those of us who really love this stuff can dig into it. All right, those were the easy things to push out of the way. And there was one more, and I'm really sorry, I just don't remember what it was because my notes are sitting at my house. Sorry about that. But what you all really want to know about is what's going on with the Republican Party. And this is, I'm going to both look at that on a small level, but then I'm going to get bigger and bigger, because it certainly appears as though the Republican Party is crumbling. And that has a lot of different pieces to it. So, you know, somebody has said, you know, how frustrating it is that we've been saying now for a decade, and for what it's worth, I've been talking about it for like 30 years, that the Republican Party cannot continue the way it is. And yet here it still is. That's a fair criticism, I think. And what people like me do is we try to read the tea leaves and say, this is what things look like, and tell you what our evidence is, and you can disagree with it. So one of the things that you have seen, and a lot of you wrote in your questions lately, is the statement that a number of Republican members of Congress are thinking about resigning or retiring, not running again in 2026. And you asked me who they were and whether that was what that was going to be true. I don't know. That's in the future. And I can't predict the future for you. I can tell you that if they are leaking that to journalists, as they obviously are, they're very, very unhappy. And you saw a glimmer of that with Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican of Georgia, who announced that she is going to be resigning from Congress. I believe it's on January 5th, 2026, 3 days after she secures her pension, just FYI on that one. But when she wrote quite a long, it was a 4-page letter about why she felt that she was going to resign. And it was a really interesting letter. Now, I just want to get out ahead of the fact that I expect to see in all these comments, you can't trust her, and, you know, we don't like her and all that. 100%. I mean, the one thing that's really interesting about Greene is that she is a fairly astute political observer. And she goes where the prevailing winds are. That doesn't mean you have to like her. That doesn't mean you have to vote for her. That doesn't mean you have to believe anything she says. It does mean that it's worth listening to what she says, because she has a good sense of where the people are on the ground. So she wrote this long letter, and you can get copies of it. It's on the internet. It's also on social media. But I'll lay out for you what's in it. She laid out in great detail how frustrated she was that people like her, and mind you, again, this is incredibly self-serving, right? Who's her audience? You know, what's she doing? And you always think those things through. But that people like her, who are trying to work for everyday Americans, who she calls them common Americans, although I don't recall off the top of my head, can't get traction in Congress because of both parties that are working against her. Keep that, put a pin in that, because I'm going to come back to it in just a minute. Then she goes on to say that she doesn't want to be primaried by Trump and have him spend tens of millions of dollars to primary her, that is, to run somebody who is more pro-Trump even than her, to the right of her, only to, as she says, win the seat because she's not going to say, I think I'll lose. She said, I will win the seat, but then the Republicans are going to lose the majority in 2026. This is her talking, not me. And then we're going to have to defend the president against impeachment. And after he's just spent tens of millions of dollars to destroy me. So in that, I think you can read a lot of things. First of all, lots of people are saying that the Republicans are going to lose the majority in 2026. And there's every sign that that's the case. Again, put a pin in that one because I'm going to come back to it. But there is also her talking about impeachment, which one has to expect the House will move forward on if the the Democrats have a majority, because to get articles of impeachment through the House, you only need a simple majority. To get them through, to get a conviction in the Senate, you need a lot more votes than that. So, but that's not necessarily out of reach. I'll come back to that too. So she is essentially saying if the Democrats get the majority, we can expect that there will be an impeachment. Now, why would you impeach somebody if you knew they weren't going to be convicted? In part because you have hearings. The American people get to see what this person has done and decide whether or not they think it's bad. And in the case of Trump, I think we already know from his plummeting poll numbers, there were 2 polls came out today that had him at 35%. Now, those are outliers on the negative side, but even still, he is down under 40% on average. We know that people don't like what he's doing. And we also know that the more stuff that comes out, the worse this administration looks. So it is not a huge leap to suggest that she's right when she says that we might well see impeachment if the Democrats get a majority in the next Congress. But more interesting than that is, and that certainly is why a lot of Republicans are talking about resigning or not running again or whatever, is partly because it's no fun to be in the minority. You can't really do very much. And also because of the leadership, as it is, of Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who is a Republican from Louisiana, who simply has been refusing to put forward anything, even that members of his own conference. I always get confused. The Democrats have a caucus, the Republicans have a conference. Even things that members of his own conference want, because he is doing Trump's bidding. He is very much doing Trump's bidding. And so a lot of those Republicans are like, I want to get out of here. I can't do anything. My constituents yell at me all the time because I'm trying to do stuff for them. Again, even Republicans are usually trying to do things that their members of their districts want. And I can't do anything because Mike Johnson keeps shutting me down. What's the point of this? I might as well be spending my time either doing what I want or running for a different sort of office. So you're actually seeing people focusing on going back to their states and working in their states. So that's that part of Marjorie Taylor Greene's letter was really interesting. But to my mind, more interesting is something that she articulated in that letter, or at least alluded to in that letter. It's not a terribly well-written letter. But that I'm seeing in a lot of other places. And that was 2 things. First of all, her emphasis on, I forget what she calls it, not a uniparty, but the idea that both the leadership of both the Republicans and the Democrats are not working for the common people. And also the idea that she is working for the common people. And she said, when the American public figures this out, I will be here for them. To my mind, that sounds like she's making a bid for power that does not involve MAGA, that she is looking at what seems to be the collapse of MAGA. I'll talk more about that in a second. And she is taking a chance on staking out a different kind of future by riding what seems to be a new kind of, well, it's an old kind of political wave, but for this moment, a new kind of political wave into the future. And that is a focus on the economic issues that the majority of Americans are now quite focusing on because of the degree to which the Republican Party has not been answering their needs. So the collapse of the Republican Party, or the crumbling of the Republican Party, looks to me very much like the crumbling of the Republican Party in the 1890s or of the Whig Party and the Democratic Party in the 1850s. We lose the Northern Democrats almost across the board in 1855 and 1856 after it becomes clear that the majority of the Democratic Party is siding with the elite Southern enslavers, which a lot of Northerners don't care about. They don't care about Black rights. They don't care about human enslavement. But what they don't want is the government to be beholden to a very few, very rich people. And when that happens, Northerners vote Democrats out of office in droves in the elections of 1855 and 1856. And this actually, I'm going to play this out a little bit before I go to the late 19th century. It's worth thinking about what that means. If the districts that are kind of what we would call purple districts are really mad enough, they get rid of the people that they think are working for the very wealthy, or a group that people don't like. But the place that remains in the hands of those people tend to be. I've lost the plural of the verb at this point. They tend to be quite extreme districts. So what happened in 1855, 1856 in the Northern Democrats is that the moderate districts all just threw out their Democrats and turned to the rising Republican Party, but the extremist districts went more extreme than ever. So this is how you're going to end up during the Civil War, with mostly war Democrats in the North, and that's a really broad brush. But the Democrats who remain in the North, like Clement Vallandigham, for example, those of you from Ohio probably have heard of him. Or if you were in 8th grade and had to read that story, The Man Without a Country, that was about Clement Vallandigham, which again, someday I'll tell you more about Clement Vallandigham, who died in a very interesting way. But he was really extreme. And Sunset Cox, another Ohio guy, Samuel S. Cox, known as Sunset, they were much more, they were kind of out of step with the rest of the North because they were in these extreme districts. And this is how you're going to get the idea of the Copperheads in the North. And they get their name from the fact that somebody tried to mail a couple of copperhead snakes to Lincoln, and the package breaks open, and but they become known as sort of the enemy within, if you will, the Copperheads. Anyway, that's worth paying attention to, because I think we're going to see the same thing, or we are seeing the same thing in this moment, where the districts that are frustrated with MAGA will stop electing MAGA and will turn to other candidates, and they're not necessarily Democratic candidates, but other candidates. And they will, so you'll end up with a much more homogeneous group of lawmakers in those districts. But the ones that are, Republican plus 17 will double down on real extreme people, and that's going to be very problematic. All right, so what is going on with, if I am identifying this uneasiness among elected lawmakers in the Republican Party right now, what is the larger story of the Republican Party and why it's in trouble right now? And honestly, I just think this is so fascinating. And I'm sorry when I do that. Remember, this is what I study, so it is intellectually interesting to me. Living through it isn't great, I gotta say. But intellectually, think about what's going on here. You have had in the Republican Party since the 1980s, and really taking off in the 1990s, a fairly uneasy marriage between at the time, establishment Republicans who wanted the government to work to concentrate wealth among a very few people. And there was an ideological argument behind that, but they want to slash the safety net, the social safety net, and they hate the Affordable Care Act. They want to get rid of social welfare programs and so on. They managed to stick together with the extremist, traditionalist religious people, the traditionalist evangelicals, especially white evangelicals, with racists, with sexists, with those sort of cultural extremes. And they managed to...
You all hit the like, share, and subscribe button. This is a Republican lady who is a historian regarding the Republican cycles, the Republican people, the Tea Party, and MAGA. She has studied all of these things, and she's been a lifelong Republican, so she knows with which she speaks. So we're getting the background of information as to why the Republicans are doing what they're doing. So, and it's only like 20 more minutes. So please hit the like, share, subscribe, please.
Convince a lot of Americans that the reason things weren't going well for them was because of the Democrats, because the Democrats, in their parlance, in what they said was that the Democrats were taking tax dollars and wasting them on people of color, on women who wanted abortions, on, you know, waste, fraud, and abuse, that they were really taking tax dollars and throwing them away, basically. And that rhetoric was really powerful. And it was really powerful, not least because the radical right managed to put together a group of media figures, especially on talk radio, but then the Fox News channel and other channels as well, really pushed that narrative. So if you listen to, for example, Rush Limbaugh, and he would talk about feminazis and, you know, this whole idea that women who wanted equal pay for equal work were somehow associated with Nazism. I mean, it's really extreme stuff. And it got more and more extreme as the economy for ordinary Americans got worse and worse. So they were able to do that, and they were able to get away from that, and get away with that and continue to win elections based on that, especially when voter suppression began to kick in after 1998 in places like Florida. But the thing that's happened under the Trump administration, that was really falling apart by 2016, when, if you remember, and most people have, memory hold this, but in 2016, Trump was really appeared to be the most moderate, economically the most moderate Republican running for the presidency. He talked about fairer taxes. He talked about, fixing healthcare. He talked about all these wonderful things he was going to do for ordinary Americans. Now, of course, he didn't do any of it. But if you listen to the way he talked, he sounded like he was going to try and fix this system for ordinary Americans. Now, and then he gets in office, and I'm not going to go through the whole first term because I want to get to the second term. But one of the things that's happened during the second term is the ability of the Project 2025 to put its wish list into effect. And it's an extremist wish list, getting rid of U.S. aid, for example, the things that they have done. The cuts that the Department of Government Efficiency made early on in the administration, what it did, I think, is that it stripped away the cover over that rhetoric. It was always rhetoric. I mean, the since 1980, I keep saying this, more than $50 trillion has moved from the bottom 50% of Americans to the top 1% of Americans. And that was the case because of supply side economics, which is what the Republicans put in place in the 1980s, and really kept pushing, especially after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. And the Democrats sort of went along with it because they sort of figured they had to work within these confines when people kept screaming about taxes. You can argue about whether or not that was the right decision, but, it was sort of the way people thought about the government right then, and that's what they did. But under Trump in the second term, and first of all, Joe Biden comes in 2021, and he completely turns that on his head. He gets rid of supply side economics. He tries to rebuild the social safety net. He tries to really work with foreign countries. He really tries to put in place an older pre-1980 version of the American government. Well, the first thing Trump does, of course, is to overturn everything that Biden had done. But one of the interesting things about that was his attacks on the public sector and on the policies that Americans have grown to expect has woken a lot of people up. I remember for years talking about the idea that the Republicans were trying to get rid of or trying to privatize Social Security and make cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. And I cannot count how many times people said, you are fear-mongering. That's not what they want to do. They're never going to do it. And of course, I would say, but look, the bills they're introducing, look at they're only backing off because the Democrats are fighting so hard or whatever. And the people were like, "Now you're just fear mongering." And you can remember in the 2024 election when Kamala Harris said things like that, the news media said, "Here we go, we're fear mongering again." Well, what Trump and especially Russell Vought of the Office of Management and Budget, who is busily putting Project 2025 into place, but also Elon Musk when he was at the Department of Government Efficiency, and certainly Stephen Miller, who is a white nationalist, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, what they have done is that they have stripped the veneer off that rhetoric. And a lot of people who had a lot to say about, the people they thought should not be getting government aid.
You all hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Hit the like, share, and subscribe button, please. We have this kind of content every evening. Tonight, our guest is Miss Cox here, who is explaining the Republican Party. Heather Cox Richardson, who is a lifelong studier of the Republican Party. So we are listening to her describe Trump and the MAGA and the Tea Party syndrome that is going on right now. She's very good. She knows a hell of a lot about the Republicans all her life. So please hit the like and share and subscribe.
Have suddenly discovered that the people who were getting government aid was them. So, the cutting of the U.S. aid hammered American farmers, and the tariffs have really destroyed the American soybean markets. And the cuts to Medicaid haven't even kicked in yet, but the cuts to the premium tax credits that underpin the Affordable Care Act premiums for a certain range of people. Those things are really, really, really biting. At the same time that if inflation is going up, Trump can say all he wants that it's not, but it is. I just don't even need to belabor that any longer. You've all been to the grocery store, things are more expensive. And inflation was coming down. It was almost back to the point that the Fed wanted it at the end of Biden's term, and now it's going back up again. So Americans are really getting squeezed at the same time that we're watching, the Great Gatsby party, and we're watching, the crypto scams, and we're watching the deals that the Trump administration is self-dealing. And people are suddenly, it seems to me, or maybe not so suddenly, recognizing that rhetoric has been extraordinarily self-serving for a very small group of Americans. And what that means politically then is that a lot of people are putting pressure not just on the Republican Party, but also on the Democratic Party. And one of the things, I did an interview with somebody and they said, the Democrats really won in November, the beginning of November. And my answer was, I don't think it was the Democrats. I think it was the American people. Because what we're seeing, I think, is a great broadening of the American electorate. That is, of people who suddenly are waking up and saying, I need to pay attention to this. I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose my health care. And when the vast majority of those people who did not vote in 2024, for example, or who thought that they were just voting for a political party like they were voting for a sports team, or who liked the way Trump sounded because they didn't really know what these policies meant, they're now paying attention and they're not liking what they're seeing. And when that has happened before in the 1850s and in the 1890s and again in the late 1920s, you see a major realignment of the country. And so when I look at the Republicans right now, I'm not just looking at the Republicans, I'm also looking at the Democrats, because the Democrats are changing too. And they're both changing to more accurately reflect the American people, because the American people are finally speaking up again. And they haven't been for a long time. And you're starting to see more and more.
Hey, Rainbow. She knows the history of the Republican Party. She knows the trends. She can quote everything regarding the Republicans. She knows more than anybody probably in this chat when it comes to the Republicans and their behavior. So when she speaks, have respect for the lady, because the lady knows what she's talking about.
More people taking a stand in public about what
We just had that fight this morning, Jeb Common. We just had that fight about 9% inflation. Biden didn't have 9% inflation when he left office. When he left office, his inflation was 2.7%. And now the inflation is over 3%. So stop talking about 9%. 9% was related to the COVID vaccine. When it comes to COVID vaccine, y'all blame Biden, but when it comes to the COVID vaccine with Trump, y'all don't know jack shit about it. Shut your ass up if you don't know what you're talking about. The inflation was 9% under COVID. And it's a testament to Joe Biden that he got it down from 9% to 2.7%. Stop it.
They think the government should do. And this is fascinating. So I did an interview recently with Jim Himes, a representative from Connecticut.
It wasn't no 9%. And it wasn't no 9%, because otherwise it would still be 9%.
One of his big things is that we really need to reinforce the War Powers Act so that Trump can't do whatever he wants. But he also went on to say, listen, what Trump is doing, attacking civilians, is completely off the charts. But then he said, but I wasn't real keen on Clinton and Obama attacking military targets in a similar sort of way, and they did end up.
Didn't I just tell you, we just looked it up? The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index. We looked all of that up not even 4 hours ago. We looked it up not even 4 hours ago. When Joe Biden got out of office, his inflation was 2.7%. When he left office in November. Y'all just be saying stuff. You ain't got no proof of that garbage that you're saying. We looked at all the official sites. Stop it.
Deferring to Congress, but they went off on their own. And what he said about that was really interesting. He's a Democrat. He said Congress has got to stand up again for its constitutional duties and powers. And so you're seeing a lot of sort of things added to the mix, and people wanting to stand up and represent the American people. And what will come out of that, I don't think we know what the parties will look like, but I will tell you the fact that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other Republicans are backing away suggests that there's a real problem in the Republican Party. And we know that because MAGA has increasingly moved toward the toward the Nazis, right? They're moving that direction. They're moving toward really the embrace of the extremists who are openly racist and sexist and anti-Semitic and openly admire Adolf Hitler. And as they do that, they're losing supporters. Exactly. Americans don't like Nazis in general. And that is very problematic for them. But then there's also the fact that Americans really don't like this whole Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Curtis Yarvin, those tech bro, that tech bro oligarchy, if you will, broligarchy, I guess people are calling it, that pretty openly says that they think they should rule everything. And, a lot of you asked about Rockbridge, which actually, if you're interested, I wrote about it more than a week ago, I think. It's a group of very wealthy investors, I said, but I meant to say donors, but investors works too, who credit themselves with putting J.D. Vance into the vice presidency because they really believe, as their leader says, that the United States should have an aristocracy. And the reason I wrote about it the other night was because, I guess it was last weekend, was because you could superimpose that language directly on the 1920s, the era of the robber barons in the 1890s, and in the period of the elite Southern enslavers in the 1850s. The idea that they really should run everything. And they, in both periods, that's the exact same language. So as this happens, you're going to see a lot of political changes. Now, one of the things that people always ask about is, what about a third party? And third parties are hard in the United States now for many reasons, not least because the infrastructure for a country that has as many people in it as we do is difficult to rebuild. I'm not saying it's impossible. Certainly on the Republican side, Trump has so corrupted their infrastructure that maybe it would be better to start from scratch again. But what more typically happens in the United States since the 1850s is the political parties keep the same name, but they rebrand themselves pretty dramatically. And we saw that in the 1890s when the Republican Party goes from being the robber barons to being progressive. They still called them.
No, you white people started the race war. You just got upset because Obama was black. And you thought just because he spoke to black people only. We already know how you white folks roll. We already know how y'all roll. Y'all think we speak in code, and then we speak in code means we speaking in code against y'all. Obama never did nothing race-wise at all. It was all you white people who imagined that Obama was doing all that stuff. It was y'all who thought he was talking in code.
Themselves, the Republicans, but they were really very different generationally.
Jeb, you the only one who think he's doing good. He's doing shitty as hell, and he's a shitty president. Prices are up. Everything is up. Food is up. Beef is up. Everything is up. Electric is up. Rent is up. I don't know where you think he's doing good at, because he ain't did jack shit. So I don't know where you think he's doing good at.
And you see the same thing repeatedly with the Democrats as well.
Oh, no, I ain't no victim either. You're a victim. No, I'm sorry. You white men are the victim. Oh, yeah. I forgot. Y'all doing that victim thing now. Oh, yeah. What is it? Civil rights. The civil rights laws and all that. Y'all the victim. Y'all the ones who being discriminated against. I forgot. It's you white boys being discriminated against. Yeah, you are the fucking victim. Y'all playing the victim card. Jesus, stop being a fucking victim.
Democrats rebrand in the same time in that period as well. So more typically, you've got the parties changing who they are really dramatically and keeping the name. And I think you can see that happening in certainly on the Democratic side now. It's really quite interesting to see.
You all hit the like, share, and subscribe button. We have this content every day. Hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Please and thank you. Like, share, and subscribe button. Like, share, and subscribe button. We have Melissa. We have
now somebody asked. Now
Heather Richardson here, who is an expert on Republicans, who's giving a rundown of the Republicans of the day and why they are behaving the way they are. She knows what she's talking about. She's an expert in it.
Remembering one of the other things that I left on that notebook page, somebody asked, why do those super rich people think that they should control the rest of us? And I don't know the answer to that, obviously, but I will tell you that there's something I observed in the late 1890s. And that's that coming out of the Civil War, the Southern enslavers who had run the American South before the war, I keep calling them the elite Southern enslavers because, in fact, most white American Southerners who held their neighbors in bondage held one person, maybe two, worked in the fields alongside them. And that's the majority by far of enslavement. But a few enslavers, and that's why I say elite Southern enslavers, had huge gangs of people that they enslaved. And they were the ones who were really running everything. So after the war, what you see is those big names, the people.
Yes, I sound very angry and very hateful. I get it. I do. Just a woman who's assertive always sounds angry and hateful to you all. That's the problem. That's the problem with the world. Just because I'm a black woman doesn't mean I'm angry or hateful. Okay? Please figure that out. Please figure that out.
The Wade Hamptons and the really big enslavers, the ones who had run politics before the war, they turn against the idea of Black rights in 1871. I've talked about this a lot. And instead of talking about race any longer, which is still uppermost in their minds, make no mistake, these are the same people, but their language changes really quickly after the establishment of the Department of Justice in 1870, because the Department of Justice starts to arrest and try and convict KKK members who attack their Black neighbors based on race. That's in 1870. So in 1871, these elite Southern enslavers say, hey, we have no problem at all with race.
No, I wasn't cussing out white people. I was cussing out idiots. And those can be Black and white. How do you think I know what color you are, Jeb Common? How would I know what color you are?
Just, again, there's a really dramatic break in the way they talk about things. What we don't want is we don't want poor people to vote, because they will vote for...
She studied the Republicans all of her life. She went to school for it. She studied for it. She was in Congress with it, all of it. She studied it all of her life. That's why she knows the most about Republicans. Okay. And she's written books on it, articles on them, all of that.
Roads and schools and hospitals that can only be paid for through tax dollars, and we're the only ones who own any property. So this is a redistribution of wealth. It is a form of socialism. And they talk that way in 1870, and then it takes off again in 1874. But when they talk about Black American men primarily, because of course women aren't voting, they talk about them and they denigrate them as being uneducated and poor and coming out of enslavement when it was illegal for them to have educations. That's not a far stretch initially to say that they're uneducated. They talk about things that way, and they talk about the idea of making sure that politics is not corrupted, and that means...
I don't think I said anything about the Democratic Party. I didn't say anything about her having a degree in Republican. She probably has a degree in poli-sci. I don't know, law, something like that.
It's like that doesn't mean suitcases of money in that period so much as it means corrupting the body politic like a disease. And they talk about politics that way, and they say things like that about Black voters, Black male voters. But it's pretty clearly rhetoric for them. That is, they can't talk about race, so they've got this political construct. But what's really interesting is
called DEI.
In the 1880s, when their sons come of age, they actually believe it. This is the world they've grown up in. They believe that Black Americans, men, I'm sorry, I should keep saying that, should never vote, and that they are dangerous to society. And they really believe it. And you see the lynching, which has really fallen off in the 1880s, goes off the charts in 1889 when Republicans talk about protecting Black voting again. And that's when you start to see the lynching parties and so on. And the reason I'm laying all this out is you asked why people seem to want more. And what I felt like I saw between one generation and the other in the American South in that period, among this group of elite white men, was the political rhetoric of one generation is internalized by the next generation. They really believe they're better than the people around them. And the reason I lay that out is because when you think about some of the people like, and I'm going to pick on Donald Trump Jr., when he talks about teachers, for example, which is how he got a burr under my saddle, and he talks about, he really denigrates people as if he's so much better than them. And to me, that's the face of somebody who has never had to work a day in their lives. That somehow they have decided they're better than the rest of us because that's what the world they grew up in. And, at the times when he would really denigrate teachers, I used to just sit there and say, give that man 4 hours in a 4th grade classroom, because he has no concept of what what real work is, and that there's just that going on. So that's maybe a little bit of a rabbit hole, but you did ask me why they feel that way, and I wonder if it's a generational change, because they have internalized what was political rhetoric in the 1980s is now their reality, even though it is utterly divorced, or their fantasy, even though it is utterly.
There's no place for black people in the Republican Party. So it is what it is, Bart C. You all keep wondering why black people are over in the Republican Party. Is because there's no place over in the Democratic Party. Is because there's no place in the Republican Party for black people. You all made it very plain that you do not want black people in your party. You made it very obvious from the way you uplift people who denigrate people of color, who denigrate immigrants, who denigrate brown people, black people. Your party does that. Didn't we just get some emails or something where the young Republicans, not the old Republicans, the young Republicans were denigrating black people, brown people, Hispanic people? Didn't we just get emails from a whole Republican Party somewhere, and people just thought that, and J.D. Vance came out and defended, oh, these are young boys. Oh, they didn't mean anything. The reason why black people are in the Democratic Party is because you Republicans have made it clear that you don't want black people in your party.
Divorced from actual reality. And I think you can see this. I'm going to go back to the party crumbling for a second. In just how bad.
You're goddamn right. It's done. And we tired of giving you white folks passes.
Yeah, this Department of Justice is. Could they have screwed up the Comey case any more than they did? And, speaking of which, when they talk about, they have this justification for these military strikes on the people driving the boats in Venezuela. It's like, if you.
And you being a victim is fake. So shut your ass up. Oh, we shouldn't have passed civil rights. That's discriminatory against us white men. We're such victims. Shut your ass up.
You couldn't even manage an indictment here in the U.S. Why should we believe anything you have to say about Venezuela? And you look at all the many ways in which they're extraordinarily incompetent. And
because this is the most misogynistic society that we have had. But ask yourself this question, Chris Cole. Why is it that when you do polling on the Hispanic people now, they run in droves away from the Republican Party? Why is it that they have done a 35-point swing from Republicans to Democrats? Why? And why have the black men done the same? Because you're a shitty party. You don't welcome black people or brown people. And then you wonder why we're over here in the Democratic Party. Don't worry about why we over here in the Democratic Party. You don't want us over there, so we're going to be over here.
Recognize that their own vision of how competent they are is in really serious contention with just how bad they are at the work that they're doing. All right, so the other piece I think that you can see the Republicans in real trouble is in the fact that the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans are.
Those are what you call grifters. Because they got a lot of followers and you goofies are paying them to say the stuff they saying. They call grifters.
Fighting. The fact that the House Republicans are enormously frustrated with Mike Johnson, who seems to be losing power by the day. But one of the other things that is, to me, is really interesting was this whole thing over the weekend.
Shut up, Hector. I done heard about the KKK so many damn times. It ain't even funny. Because I know that's where you're going. Go do research, Goofy. Go do research. Please go do research. Don't start with the Klan and all that. Please go do research. Yeah, I know it is, Joseph. Yeah, Goofy. It's a grift. Y'all pay good money to hear black people talk down to other black people. Y'all pay good money.
And into last week with this 28-point plan theoretically for peace between Russia and Ukraine. And it's very clear that people were freelancing, that you had on the one side, you had Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, who was apparently not aware that Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, apparently with the help of Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and the support of J.D. Vance, were freelancing to essentially give the Russians whatever they wanted. And Marco Rubio tried to stand against it, and he talked to the senators and went back and forth and back and forth. And it was, first of all, it was incredibly embarrassing. It was clear that there was that foreign policy was whichever group.
No, right. No RGS sawmill. Today it's the white men that are the victim. Civil rights have made you the victim. So you're the victim now. We gotta get rid of civil rights. We gotta get rid of DEI. That discriminates against us white men. You're the victim. You all are playing the victim now. Don't put that on us. You are playing the victim now.
Thought it was that day. But you asked about this today, and I think this is an important sign. News broke today, I believe it was in Bloomberg, but it's been picked up elsewhere now that Steve Witkoff apparently advised the Russians on how to approach Trump, and there has been a leaked telephone recording. Now,
you guys are zombies. The zombies, just the zombies, the zombies. They spitting that weird rhetoric again. They're all of them are wrong. And they each got 3 brain cells between them, and it's 8 of them.
Whole story itself is bad enough, but someone leaked it. Always look and see when there are leaks, because that says somebody's unhappy and they're going to the media about it. And that was a pretty important leak. So that's another sign that the Republican Party, the wheels seem to be coming off the bus. That being said, that does not mean it's not going to be a mess going forward. It's probably going to be worse than ever going forward. But that does raise the...
Well, we do have at least 20 people resigning from the Republican Party come January. Retiring and resigning. So, unfortunately for you, that one, Joe, the people don't think that way. They're moving away from the Republican Party in droves. You guys have the worst record. No. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. Yeah, all those bot accounts. We got it. Here's the thing. You guys, Democrats don't have shit. The Democrats ain't shit. Democrats don't have a message. Democrats don't have a leader. They don't have no fucking fun. They don't have jack shit. But yet and still, they beating the shit out of y'all with the blue wave that went over your head like a big ass tidal wave. And it's going to go over your head again. They don't see it. But why do you think there was a blue wave? You thought it was a blue wave because blue states just vote blue. Well, then why didn't the blue states just vote blue when Donald Trump got elected? That don't make no sense. That's wild. Come in the chat crashing out. Only you MAGAs come in here crashing out. Only y'all. I swear to God, y'all the funniest shit. You come in the door crashing out.
Question, and now I'm killing myself because I had a great ending over at the house. Sorry.
I asked you a question. I said, if blue states only vote blue, because that's what a lot of you maggots say, blue states only voted blue, it wasn't no surprise that y'all won. How is it that Donald Trump won them blue states and turned them red if they only vote blue? Please explain that in the 2020. Please explain that in the 2024 election. How Donald Trump turned them red if they always turn blue. Dummies.
about that. That it does raise the question, as somebody said, how on earth are we going to make it through 3 years of this, 3 more years of this? What do we see as getting Trump out of office? And the answer is, well, first of all, we don't know. Again, that's the future. But second of all, the thing that has made the difference in the last year since January in the United States of America is us. It is the American people putting pressure on their elected officers to say, we don't like what's going on. We want to have navigational buoys. We want to have affordable health care. We want to have all of these many things that
Donald Trump see that the American people want health care. So he better step right up and figure out how he going to come up with some medical plans, or he better redo Obamacare. That's the problem. He better wait for them. He better get them damn medical subsidies on that table for real.
But were written into our laws and wouldn't be changed. And we are now discovering that the MAGA Republicans are stripping them away from us, and we want them back. And
we want them back.
That pressure, the marches, the organization, the raising money, the running for office, especially at the local level with school boards, for example, and town halls, that is what is taking somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene and having her look around and say, if I want to get reelected, my bet shouldn't be on MAGA. It should be on the issues that ordinary Americans care about. And again, if you look at those, we are overwhelmingly in favor of FEMA. We like FEMA. We like USAID. We like education. We like clean water. We like clean air. We don't like
And then Trump got rid of all of that. That's why his agenda is failing. That's why everything he tries is failing. That's why they will be voting the Republicans out of office, because the Republicans are not interested in governing. They're only interested in power. That's it. They don't want to govern. They don't know how to govern. They've never figured out how to govern. They've only figured out how to get money.
Regulated AI, all the positions that people are now calling progressive, I find fascinating, because if that's the case, then we are an extraordinarily progressive country, because 70 to 80% of us, 85% on some of these things, want those issues. And so if I keep saying, if we stop thinking about the world as us versus them, like Trump wants us to, or even as Republicans versus Democrats, as the political punditry seems to be doing, and think of ourselves as Americans versus a very small group of oligarchs and MAGA who are trying to force us to live in sort of this hellscape. If we think about it that way,
whoa. What did she just say? What did she just say? Listen, what did she just say?
Positions that people are now calling progressive, I find fascinating, because if that's the case, then we are an extraordinarily progressive country, because 70 to 80% of us, 85% on some of these things, want those issues. And so if I keep saying, if we stop thinking about the world as us versus them, like Trump wants us to, or even as Republicans versus Democrats, as the political punditry seems to be doing, and think of ourselves as Americans versus a very small group.
Think of us as Americans instead of a small group of what?
Oligarchs and MAGA who are trying to force.
Oligarchs and MAGA. Instead of just think of ourselves as Americans, instead of a small group of oligarchs and MAGAs, what?
Force us to live in sort of this hellscape.
They want us to live in this hellscape. MAGA wants to live in this hellscape. They want us to live in the hellscape. Is that what she said? Hold on. Let me back up. What'd she say?
And so if I keep saying, if we stop thinking about the world as us versus them, like Trump wants us to, or even as Republicans versus Democrats, as the political punditry seems to be doing, and think of ourselves as Americans versus a very small group of oligarchs and MAGA who are trying to force us to live in sort of this hellscape.
What? Is it these oligarchs and MAGA trying to make us live in this hellscape? What? Are they trying to make us live in a hellscape? They think it's euphoria, and we keep telling them it's hellscape? What? Say it again. What?
As the political punditry seems to be doing, and think of ourselves as Americans versus a very small group of oligarchs and MAGA who are trying to force us to live in sort of this hellscape. If we think about it that way, our political alliances change in a hurry. You know, we bleed off the MAGAs who are, you know, the neo-Nazis.
Bleed off the MAGAs? We need to bleed the MAGAs off? What? They want us to live in this hellscape? What? It's more than just me saying that? What? Didn't I say that the MAGAs want us to live in this hellscape? She said they want us to live in this hellscape? What?
And we bleed off the Peter Thiels and the Broligarchs, and then we have the rest of us to enforce what we want through a democracy. That's what we've done. That's what we did.
I don't know why you MAGAs think y'all so popular. Y'all ain't nothing but 25% of the population. Don't nobody want to do what y'all want to do. Nobody.
In the 1850s, we did in the 1890s, did in the 1930s. It certainly looks like that's what we're doing now. Now, that being said, don't think for a minute it's going to be easy. The people who are in power are not going to give up that power easily. And they're going to get worse the more they think that their power is in jeopardy. And you can see that around us now with the attacks on Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, for the idea that he needs to be court-martialed for making a video that actually calls for members in the service members to remember that it is the law for them to disobey unlawful orders. And somehow the Trump administration has turned that around to say that by suggesting, I actually spent hours on this yesterday, so I finally figured out how it works. They are saying, and by the way, the video that they produced, I think it was last Tuesday, is very clear. You must not obey unlawful orders. They say that. But what the administration...
Yeah, but you got goofies in the chat saying he called for treason? Goofy?
Administration has turned that into is by saying that they are saying that Trump has given unlawful orders, which, by the way, it appears he might have.
He has given unlawful orders. He's the president. So therefore, the only people that can hold the president accountable is his party. And his party are weak. And they want to keep their money. So they're not going to hold him accountable. That's what I don't like about Republicans. They never want to hold their people accountable. All they come to the table with is hate, 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 and no accountability. None whatsoever. So therefore, this president is going to run around and call people Miss Piggy. Shut up, Miss Piggy. Shut up, Miss Piggy. Without any kind of pushback from these pathetic Republicans.
In Venezuela at the least. And by saying that Trump has given unlawful orders, they are, according to the Trump administration, saying that, it's very convoluted. They are saying that service members should not follow the chain of command, and therefore they are committing treason, which is completely bass-backwards. It's completely not what they said at all. But that attempt to go after a sitting senator because he exercised his right to free speech, and for that matter, his...
And no pushback from the Republican senators. No Republican senators has a senator's back. Not one. That's why it's a weak party. They need to be primaried and kicked out. Kick all of them out because they don't mean the American public any good.
His prerogatives under the speech and debate clause of the Constitution, which permits
her first name ain't Peggy, dummy.
Members of Congress to speak freely about legislative issues, not about everything, but about legislative issues anywhere, is a sign, I think, of this increasing desperation and the increasing desire to hurt people and to try and gather as much power into their hands as they possibly can. So it's not going to be easy, but the momentum is very much on the side of those of us who are trying to defend our democracy. And once again, that is not a partisan position. You can be part of this movement if you're an independent, if you're a Republican. Right now, though, the people who are really embracing democracy and trying to protect our country are the Democrats. And that's where my weight.
Did you say the people who are trying to protect the country are called Democrats? Did you say that? Did you say that? Wait a minute, hold on.
If you're a Republican, right now, though, the people who are really embracing democracy and trying to protect our country are the Democrats.
The Democrat. Did she say the Democrat? Do I need to play that again? Do we need to say the Democrat? Because you Republicans, the Republicans stand on nothing. They don't believe in nothing. They stand on nothing. There's nothing to believe. They don't do anything. They just want. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene said, I got to go.
And that's where my weight is right now, behind them, because they're the ones who are out there in front doing these, trying to protect the country. So we're in a funny time. And, I wake up every morning and say to my husband, I just feel like we're reliving the 1890s. And if you remember the 1890s, they were not calm times, but many of the signs that we see around us look very much like that. And the key going forward is to keep that pressure up, keep swinging, keep staying in the game, because we need to keep that momentum up and going. Okay, I went on longer than usual today because I'm thinking through stuff, but thank you for being here. I hope everybody has a good holiday.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you, Heather Cox. So, that's an expert in Republican people. So she said we got a long way to go before we figure this out, before we figure out what's going on. But you know what? Donald Trump got to come up with a medical plan. The Republicans said they're going to quit earlier than usual if he brings up a medical plan, a healthcare plan. It's wild. It's wild. But here we are. You all hit the like, share, subscribe button. We have content like this every evening, every day. We bring on some new events. We bring on daily events, people who know what they're talking about. We review their video, find out if it's true or not. I've listened to her a couple times, and she's been very spot on. Yes, we are definitely at a tipping point. This president, I believe, he's either gonna meet his maker or he gonna get impeached. But it's gonna be one or the other. It's gonna be one or the other. Makes no difference to me one way or the other. He's either gonna meet his maker or he's gonna get impeached. Because everything he has done has put a damper on this whole American country. And we let this victim mentality of the white males get out of control. We let that victim mentality get out of control. And once it got out of control, then we started hearing about, get out of my country. Get out of here. Don't do this. Don't do that. Males are victim. You will not replace us. That kind of garbage. This is wild. We live in wild time. These are wild times, wild people, and wild things. Please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe, like, and share. We will be back tomorrow with more content. Hopefully we got something new going on. Hopefully we got some new things going on. But I'm sure we do, because this president never is boring. He's never got a boring thing going on. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be up in the air flying by the seat of my pants for 4 years. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to do that for 4 years. Y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe on the way out. Please and thank you. We will be back.